And so we do have an opportunity here to have a public comment for 15 minutes. And I believe, Mr. Lipson, you have a letter that you would like to have entered into the record?
Oh, excuse me, yeah.
I have it here for you to read if you'd like.
Well, I don't necessarily read it.
Okay.
If you want to read it, if you want to read the salient points.
Well, I'm not saying I agree. I hate to read it and have anyone think that I necessarily agree with it, but I'd be happy to read it.
No, but I just wanted to go on the records, that's all.
Okay, so you just want it on the record?
Yeah.
Okay, just that the thoughts of a citizen and taxpayer, Sam Lipson, a resident of the Barre, Mass, since 1976, sent in a letter to be included in the record. I would ask the secretary to do so. I've asked him if he would like to read it into the record. He's indicated that that would not be necessary. Correct?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. And Sandy, you have that record, that letter? So
Yes, I do.
And I guess if somebody wants to read it, they can come to wherever they need to read it. It's public information.
Public information, for sure. Yeah. I think we're good? Okay. Any other public comment? We have,
I do have a question for John Dixon.
Sure.
John, you mentioned to me there was some sort of new sign rules
Yes.
that had come up,
Yeah.
and you were going to
Oh.
give me a copy.
Yeah, I do need to send that to you. And so the state hasn't adopted it yet, but it's at the federal level now. So the state will adopt it, but I don't know that the rules for the signs themselves are changing too much. It's an updated version of the METCD, so this is the first update since 2009. And you might have seen on the news, they're actually now cracking down on states for putting funny messages on the signs over highways. So that's something you'll see in the news now. So that's something, like I was mentioning several months ago, was coming down the pipeline.
I just didn't want you to forget that.
Yep, yeah, I will make a note to send you that.
Sam, you probably noticed that under old business, we're going to be talking about with the Barre Historical Society, signs for the common.
I saw that.
Yeah, so maybe if you want to hang around a while, we can
Oh, yeah,
have
I'd like to
conversations
be here.
about that. Okay. That being
I'm
said,
scheduled in.
you're scheduled in, okay.
I'm scheduled in for Monday night entertainment.
I'm sad that this is our best you can do. Sir?
I have a question about the agenda.
Yes?
Earlier today on the agenda, it showed that there were 2 activities that were going to take place on the COA tonight. And then later on in the day, one of them disappeared. I'd like to understand why.
I don't know what you're trying.
You had me remove Penelope Dillon.
Oh, it was just was it a resignation?
Yes.
Yeah, we just got a very late resignation, and I just indicated that I thought we would like to talk to the person before putting it in accepting her resignation.
Is
We-
this something you normally do with all of the residents?
Well, let's put it this way. There's certainly something afoot at COA. We're having a number of resignations and so forth, and those resignations come to us with not much information. And so we wanted the opportunity to have a conversation with some of the people who are choosing to resign sort of en masse. We wanted to know perhaps the reason why.
As we would as well.
Okay. So that's the only reason.
All right.
Any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, moving
Oh,
on.
there's one.
Whoop.
I'm not sure if Ware River Advisory Committee, is that on the agenda or
It's
public
on.
comment?
It's on there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The minutes for January 17, you have those and have had those for a number of days. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the meeting minutes from January 17th.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the January 17th to 2024 meeting minutes, and these would be for public release. Any changes, modifications?
No.
Hearing none, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Looks like a unanimous vote. Moving along to new business, approve and sign the town election warrant and presidential primary election warrant. This is perfunctory by the board, as you can imagine, since it is our town clerk that actually puts all of this information together for us. And so we would just ask that we have a moment here just to sign the warrant.
I move to approve the annual town election warrant and presidential primary election warrant.
We have a motion,
Second.
we have a motion made and seconded regarding the warrants for the
For
upcoming
For
elections.
the election to take place on Monday, sorry, is that right?
Yes, April 1st.
Monday?
April 1st for
April
the
1st.
town election, and
Oh, yes,
March
okay.
5, I believe.
Monday, April 1st, 2024, from 8 AM to 8 PM for the annual town election, and
March 5th.
March 5th, 2024, for the,
Presidential.
presidential primary election warrant.
So we have 2 warrants before us. The dates have been placed into the record, and the documents that we have been provided to us by the town clerk. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That makes it a motion. Do you have a special thing that we have to sign, or? Okay, with a special pen? Got it. Okay, moving along, that's approved. We have with us this evening the director of the Barre Library, and we're very happy to have you here. With just prefacing a little bit about your presentation this evening, I have requested that you appear before the board for the purposes of providing some information. We have been spending a great deal of time, since it seems forever, trying to work with Spectrum to increase opportunities for all of our town residents to get access to actual landline internet service. We have not been particularly successful in getting a situation where we have gotten from Spectrum a bill we can afford to pay. We started out in an area where we thought we could pay the amount that they requested, but then pretty soon it grew and grew until it was $750,000 for 60 houses. We just said we can't do that. So then we talked about doing Starlink, which was trying to do something that rural communities do in order to provide internet for rural communities. Then we had further conversations about other options. Then I happened to be in the library listening to a presentation by the director. And that director was talking about T-Mobile hotspots and Verizon hotspots that are utilized around the town. And that I'm gonna let you talk about it because it's so exciting and so forth. And so since they have had provided this information, and I got this sometime in December, I believe, and I said, this is something the board should hear about. And since that time, I know of some persons that have have taken things out of the library and set them up in their homes and so forth, and so I have a little background information on what has happened for them. And so Joe, if you would like to, Joe Hood, our library director, if you'd like to have a little conversation, come up front and maybe turn to the audience and talk a little bit about what options and opportunities we have.
Sure. Hi, everybody. So we have, back in 2022, I believe, we got a grant at the library through the state to, they actually provided us with 10 T-Mobile hotspots. They're about this big. I don't know if anybody here has ever checked them out, but you check them out with your library card for 4 weeks, and it provides access to internet through cell towers, through the Verizon cell towers, for up to 10 devices at a time.
That's 10 devices in your home.
In your home. Well, and, I mean, and you can travel around with them.
Right.
We've had a lot of people take them to Cook's Canyon while they're out, and take them out hiking, which is great. And they've been very, very successful. We, I don't think, often, all of them were checked out. We have, I don't know if I said this, we have 10 total. And that was through the pandemic, when people didn't have, internet at home for school and remote work and everything. And we tested out 2 different ones. We tested a Verizon hotspot first, and then went to T-Mobile was the one that the state provided. And the T-Mobile hotspots they did better access to internet than Verizon, which is interesting considering they both work on Verizon cell towers, but the T-Mobile devices work better.
So, and I said to Joe, I can't believe this. Would you just show them what you're talking about?
I didn't bring one with me.
I mean,
know, I'm sorry, I
it's smaller than my cell
It's
phone.
smaller, yeah.
It's smaller than my cell phone. I
Yeah.
said, this can't be true. So at any rate, I took one out. And I live in literally on top of a Verizon tower, so I have Spectrum, so that's not it. So I gave this to a family member who doesn't have access to internet in the town of Barre. I said, try this. And they said, well, if you can't stream 95 programs, this isn't for us, this isn't good enough. So I said, try it. several hours later, the call came, "This is perfect, oh my God, where do we get this?" And I believe they took the thing that I took out back to you and tried it back in, went to T-Mobile, blah, blah, got whatever it was for about $300, whatever this thing is in their home. And were able then to make a deal for, it's about $80 a month that they pay for internet. They have never had like real internet where they live, which is on Loring Road. And you would say, where is Loring Road? It is not very far away, it is not way out in some boondocks, it is a place where you can't believe that they don't have any kind of spectrum service there. But most of the homes were built after cable came to Barre. So, at any rate, then I talked with someone else who lives in the back end of, almost into Peter Sam, up in the Haws Hill area, where you can't get anything for anything. And they use that hotspot with great, success. And so I would like the board to contemplate the possibility of inviting all people that we know, at least who have signed up, asking us to try to get them internet. And there's at least 60 we have on a list, and I think there's probably 5 or 6 more. And they're located on Loring Road and Jewett Road, up on Haws Hill area, up obviously off in some of the roads that go off into Peter Sam, where we just had some work with National Grid, brought some poles back in there. And to invite them, and whether it be you or T-Mobile, somebody or whatever, for people to take them out of the library, for the town to purchase for the library, maybe 10 more hotspots that people can take out of the library free of charge for 30 days or whatever we decide, and that they would have the opportunity to get internet streaming and so forth and be able to work from home for the first time. It seemed to me to almost be like, where have we all been for rural communities, not thinking about having this as an opportunity for our folks. A lot of people don't believe it could work. I was one of those sort of doubting Thomases. I thought, can you stream with it? I kept saying, can you stream with it? He says, yeah. And you could have 3 or 4 people at the same time streaming using different devices. And that has proven to be true as well.
Yes.
So, I would just like for the board to sponsor a night when we can ask you, if you would be so kind,
Sure.
as to demonstrate this for us and to bring people together to see if this is something that they might be interested in. I know that T-Mobile would probably be happy to see more people come to their place. And I would be happy to, if there's another vendor that thinks they're equal to or better and would like to join us in saying to people, this is an option for rural folks, that they can actually have, access to internet streaming services. So
Sure.
your presentation to me at another meeting that I was at with a group of citizens, I was a doubting Thomas, but now having seen sort of what this can do, the only thing that we can do as a community is we can support this and provide information for people. We can't say, gee, we'll pay for you to get a special, satellite dish, or we just can't do that. But we certainly can provide information and access for people to try it out, to see if it's something that will work for them in their homes. Because I think it's pretty dismal. And I know people have said that they've lost sales of their own homes because people said, you don't have any internet? You can't get internet here? And so living in a rural community has its challenges, its beauty and its challenges.
Absolutely.
I think that's great that anyone could try it out with one of the libraries first
Yeah,
before going all in.
So I think if you and I can talk with a T-Mobile rep, that
Sure.
I know you have somebody that you
I have
work
the
with.
person's name, and I pass it along to Tammy too.
Okay,
So.
and so
Yeah.
we would use our ARPA funds, which a lot of which should be dedicated to doing some work like this, and to provide people with the opportunity to see if this is something that would meet their needs.
Sure.
And I would really appreciate the board to make a motion and to authorize us to participate in a program of outreach to those individuals within our community who have no internet access, and to provide the library with potentially 10 more hotspot stations
Sure.
that can be utilized in the public at large. We have a motion?
One quick thought on that. I know you mentioned ARPA money, but is that something that,
PEG,
PEG?
yes, PEG,
Okay.
yes, we could certainly use it.
so I
PEG
don't wanna
money for
limit
that.
it just
Yeah.
to potentially ARPA if we have PEG fund, I know we have
And we do.
a good amount of PEG
PEG funds.
funds, something along those lines could
Yeah.
be beneficial, so.
Good.
I'd certainly move to have an outreach opportunity, to set up an outreach, event for getting more information out about these devices. I think, you know, I don't know that we should authorize purchasing more at this point, maybe at least give some opportunity, have it as a, you know, now that that information's out there, give it a chance for anyone to consider it, and then,
Well, what
Yeah,
I'd like to
bring
do
it
is
back,
to make certain that people understand what the options and possibilities are, and invite them to
Yeah.
a program where they can hear more about it, and that we can readily provide them with a trial.
Yep.
So we've got 10 already at the library. I hate to take those away from other people who I know take
Mhm.
them out in regular fashion. So just an outreach that would make sense so that the community has access. We have a motion?
I have a question, actually. Is limitations on the high speed or whatever, like,
They
What do we
are,
have?
they are unlimited data, but I know after a certain cap, a certain number of gigs, they do slow down a little bit. I don't know exactly what that is off the top of my head.
Mhm.
But there's it's just unlimited. So it doesn't really matter what you're using it for.
Right.
But if you are using it to stream things, it would use up more data a little bit quicker.
But that is not much different than whatever, whether you have a satellite or whether you even are on a spectrum. There,
Well,
I would say on,
Most of them do have
on,
caps.
huh?
Most of them
Yeah.
do have
Yeah.
caps on the data,
Right.
even though they're unlimited. Once
Yeah.
they hit a certain point,
Yeah.
they slow down a little bit.
it gets throttled
Yeah.
So we have a motion made. We have a second?
for the
Second.
outreach.
We have a motion made and seconded. Stan?
Is it as, I'm not internet savvy, but is this device as fast as Spectrum is, or is it compatible with other?
It is. I don't know off the top of my head what the speed is for them,
Oh, that's
but it
wonderful.
is, but I know, I mean, I've used them at home to test them first, and it is just like having normal,
Oh,
you know, any kind of internet.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Magic box.
Well,
Is it possible to have it available other than to just those who don't have service?
you can,
I,
you
for
can go,
example, have-
you can go to T-Mobile and get this for
Well,
yourself.
I understand, but I was just thinking that potentially it might be a way to parlay that with T-Mobile, if they would get a larger market share. That maybe there could be a
Well,
deal cut
listen.
between the town and them.
Listen, I think that could be a potential over time, but the thing that I don't wanna do with negotiating a new contract with, Spectrum, because this is our 10th year, and I know that the cable committee will be working on that. We're trying first at least to do this step, and then what people decide to do on their own, I mean, they certainly can just do on their own. It's probably, I mean, because I get extra stuff from Spectrum, I pay more than the base. This is just a base price, and people who wanna do more and get faster, I think there's some tiers in the T-Mobile.
Yes, there are.
You can pay a little
Not-
more,
Not for these particular hotspots
Right.
that we have, but there are for
Yeah.
the regular T-Mobile service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so I think that, having a T-Mobile rep maybe even come that
Sure.
evening and so forth and chat with people. What we're trying to do is to do outreach, we'll give people options that we're unable to continue to negotiate in any real way with a company who has a monopoly on the poles that have 2 foot that they own, and they're not giving it out to anybody else.
I think if we can get a price on what it would cost to get some sample ones,
Mhm.
you know, we could potentially approve purchasing some sample ones before that outreach
Yeah.
meeting. If we schedule that outreach meeting far enough out that we could, the next time we meet, if we have some numbers on what that would cost to get some samples,
Sure.
that'd be great.
Yeah, we can reach out to them and see. I know the hotspots that we currently have, it's $400 a month for the library to pay for the data for all 10 hotspots.
Yep.
And we didn't have to pay for the hotspots, the library got to keep the hotspots when the grant ended.
Mhm.
So the hotspots, I think, for the town to purchase, at least at the time, was around $100 a piece,
Mhm.
which is not
Well,
very much.
I would just say that the individuals who purchased it recently was $320.
Right, yeah, and this was
For
a
the
couple
thing,
years
for
ago.
the thing in their home.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing you have grant money that offsets this through the state to T-Mobile
We
and
did,
so
yeah,
forth,
we
yeah.
did, yeah.
So what we will do then with the vote, if we could just ask to call the vote, we have a motion made and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we have a
There's,
motion.
one more comment.
We're all set?
Could I ask about Spring Hill Road area? It was my
Spring,
understanding that,
well, Spring Hill Road is a whole different animal.
okay, so that's still being pursued?
That has, we're paid for that. We're still waiting. What the problem was trying to negotiate, for Matrix, to negotiate with Verizon to get access to being able to string the cable on their 2 feet. Because they own 2 feet of the pole. I know it's insane, but that's, so, they've been, this is at least what, 2 years?
Probably.
That Matrix has, because
Yeah.
what we did was with up there at Spring Hill Road, because of the location, this line from Matrix came off of, okay, Peter Sam's
Right.
expansion. This did not come from a Barre expansion, this came off of and so basically, I guess we couldn't make a deal with Spectrum, so the Matrix made a deal with Spectrum to pay for whatever that is, to take those 2 feet and to spring the lines. I don't think, are the lines there yet?
No, the lines aren't there yet, but they said that, I saw somebody on the road and I asked them about it, they said it was pretty much a done deal within 6 months, they said they'd have lines up there, you know what I mean?
Okay,
So,
so,
whatever,
yeah,
you
so,
know, I can't. You know.
yes, I mean,
In that area, I'm not sure that there's good enough cell signal that this type of device would work up there, right?
we don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We could
Without testing it out,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but I do know, like you said, up at Haas Hill, we had a patron who checked it out, it didn't work anywhere in their house except for up on a window on their second floor, and they had it sat on their windowsill, and then they had internet service in the rest of their house, so they found a spot that worked, and it worked for them, for all the devices that they had, so, depends.
Yeah, it does depend. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's gonna be better in some places than others, but at least we think it would, for the 65 that have, brought, their plight to our attention, I'm thinking that 16 or 17 of them are in one spot. And that's down in that Loring Road area. And
Right.
so we know it works there and it works well. So that could really make their lives a whole lot simpler.
Yeah.
So the situation on Spring Hill Road has not become cost prohibitive, it's going ahead as far as.
It's going ahead.
Okay,
It's going ahead.
Great.
Now, what Matrix will charge you is probably you can find out better information from a Peter Sam person who is working with Matrix.
So the town was gonna pay for the initial stringing of the wire and?
We paid, yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
And the individuals would
Yeah,
tie
well, and see, that's,
at their own expense?
yeah, that's where it gets very difficult, because so many homes in our community, especially in the rural areas, are considerable distance off the poles. And we had a really difficult time with Matrix, just basically saying, or I shouldn't say Matrix, Spectrum, just saying, oh, no, we're not going to any house. Oh, no, we're not gonna give them, the free hookup. Oh, no, we're gonna coil it, okay? And then require them to have certain expertise hired to bring it to their homes. Because some of it's, some people would like to bury it, some people would like to just bring it in from the, overland, from pole to pole. And if they have to put a new pole in, that'll be their problem. It was so cost prohibitive for some people that we just said, I think that's what you found with your location.
Mine, yeah.
So, we really feel, I believe that just like I never thought I'd only have a cell phone. I always thought I'd have a landline. And now, I'm saying, what do I have a landline for, right? So I'm guessing that this whole cellular thing is going to be the way of the future, and that more people are going to be getting their service via what we're talking about, or I'm guessing, because you see in the cities, they're just pushing this big time. So, just saying that, I'm just really happy to be able to use some PEG money and to get some folks in the room and see if we can get them up and running.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much for the outreach, and thank you for being on top of the stuff in the library. And my commendations for all the stuff you've done in the library over the year and a half maybe of your directorship, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting to be as old as me.
Yeah.
But really, you've done stunning things, and the amount of things that you have for children on the weekend are pretty amazing.
Thank you.
So we
Appreciate it.
did do a vote, right?
Yes, I got it.
We're all set, it's in the minutes,
Those
okay.
pom-pom launchers were fun last weekend.
Were they?
Oh, yeah.
Good. That's awesome, yeah, I heard great things about it. Great
Kids are
feedback.
still running around with them.
Are they?
Yeah, but thank you very
All
much.
right.
So I'll be in touch. I'll be in touch.
Keep it back with you. All right.
I'll be in touch. Thanks.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, now we have Ware River Advisory Committee, Trails Committee. I know you have some, I got a couple calls from some equestrian people today, very concerned about wanting to make sure that this particular, warning situation could be available on Williamsville Road. I said, we don't take care of Williamsville Road, that's Hubbardston. So they said, oh, so some people may not be here tonight because they said, oh, this is Barre, not Hubbardston. So we're talking about Howard's Crossing, I'm dating myself when I say
Yes.
that, Howard's Crossing, and that is a lot of biking, a lot of walking, a lot of back and forth, and it's a dangerous hill,
Auto traffic.
yeah.
Yep.
So why don't you go ahead, Mike, and bring us up
Well,
to
I'm just
speed?
gonna introduce Brett Russ. He's a delegate to the Ware River Advisory Committee on behalf of the public at large, correct?
Yes.
And he is very involved in their trails subcommittee.
Okay,
So he's been working with Hubbardston, with the Williamsville crossing,
mm-hmm,
and he wants to tell you about ideas for the Howard's Crossing
great,
as well.
Sure. All right, thank you, Mike. So, my name is Brett Russ. I'm a Brooklyn resident, but I'm here on behalf of a regional committee or regional capacity. And I have with me Dave Flick, who's also a member of our Trails Subcommittee. So the Ware River Watershed Advisory Committee has been long existing. Relatively recent is the Trails Committee, where we have kind of representation of all 4 towns' open space committees, and all the user groups are kind of represented under one umbrella, and Dave is actually here as a historical rep for the
Okay.
committee. So we try to take in all interests. And one of the top projects that we were thinking of is the Ware River Rail Trail. The corridor today crosses several busy roads, Williamsville Road in
Yeah.
Hubbardston, as we talked about, and Route 62, or what is it, Barre, Hubbardston Road.
Yeah.
And so the town of Hubbardston, we have a rep on our Trails Committee who's actually leading that project. He's, I believe, employed by the DCR, so he's got a lot of time with the state and understands the processes. So he's going for a Mass Trails grant for this. And we're kind of watching how that goes, but I wanted to kind of bring the concept to you guys and see if Barry might be interested in taking on, not only for the rail trail, but as Mike has noted, Gilbert and Granger roads all come together there as well.
Right.
It's a complex intersection, and pulling out cars have just as much risk as, a horse, well, maybe a little
well,
less.
I'm not saying I'm only a horse person, I'm just saying that those were the people most interested in having this conversation.
Right, right.
I would tell you, as a school-type person, that is a horrible place when we drive those buses down that road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And- And we have, for example, we have students who are waiting at the bottom of that hill, usually at that Granger Gilbert Road. Usually parent cars are there and kids are standing out there. And so, yeah, we know very much a lot about, Howard's Crossing, going up it
Mhm.
and coming down it.
So, I just wanted to kind of bring an idea, so what the town of Hubbardston is doing is they're gonna put, for now, they're thinking of this as 2 phases. The first phase gets us some safety improvements at the road. Right now, there's not even a crosswalk, there's no
Mhm.
signage or anything, so they're gonna put up, signage right next to the rail trail crossing on either side. And those signs will be, what do they call them, RRFBs, but it's like a flashing beacons. And the beacons will be off unless activated by a button
Okay,
on either side. So the crossing, people on the trail will have to hit a button.
okay.
And that'll turn on the blinkers for a certain amount of time. And then the approach on Williamsville Road, one direction has a pretty good sight line,
Mhm.
the other has a blind corner. So they're gonna put an advanced, sign there, which is always flashing. Just to let people know coming up that there's a crossing there, and it may not be occupied, but, so that's their idea. And then they figured once this gets more traffic, more users, and the trail gets improved, they were thinking, paint a crosswalk, put motion activated or something more advanced, but those things, for now, raise the cost beyond, for the usage that it gets.
Is this, go ahead.
Was anything for this crossing in Barre, so, I guess the first question, with the Mass Trails grant, was that put in by Hubbardston or by DCR, or,
By Hubbardston Town.
By
yeah.
Hubbardston, okay,
Right,
so-
we're kind of doing this as 2 different things.
Mhm.
Well, they're doing this as one thing, and I'm coming to you to see if
Yeah.
you'd like to to pursue this and how.
Yep.
I think we're meeting with the DPW next Monday.
Yes.
And what's the cost of the grant that was received for Hubbardston?
It's under 30K actually with the signage without the motion detectors. I think it was, I could look it up and get back to you, it's right here.
Was that for solar RFBs
It
or
must
for
be solar.
hardwired?
Solar with the batteries and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think at least for ours, it's a terrible spot for solar, but we do have the overhead lines there with,
Yeah.
you know, with the power we would need. One of the things, I went down and looked at the area, familiar with rapid flashing beacons and Mass Trails grants, so. And it's something we're gonna wanna look into, especially not just with that rail trail, but we also have the Central Mass Rail Trail. We have a stretch of that that's gonna be going through Barre eventually.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get more in depth with that. One of the things that was said a little while ago, that we're expecting that stretch of road to be paved in the next
Mhm.
year by the state through
Right.
a program. And one of the things when the state comes through and they pave something, you can't touch that pavement for 5 years. So I've asked to have it put on the DPW agenda as well. I think one of our best option is, with the anticipation that at some point we'll get
Mhm.
rapid flashing beacons there, is to put conduit in now and we anticipate before it gets paved. So I'm gonna bring that up at the DPW commission as well. That's part of what I was anticipating. I would, I think from our perspective, I think it would be better, instead of having a constant flashing sign upstream, up the hill, would be, they actually have rapid flashing beacon, advanced warning rapid flashing beacons. So that can communicate with the other ones and will flash when the pedestrian activation occurs. And I think that would be more efficient for that hill.
That's the one that bumped the cost up. They
Yeah.
had like a wireless communication between them for the advance.
Mhm.
So they illuminated that for phase one, but yeah, I agree with you.
I think that
It'd be nice
would make more sense there than a constant one. They just,
Yeah.
people ignore them pretty
Right.
quickly.
Right.
And we could also look at, I mean, as far as the right-of-way goes, look at just running a cable up there to save cost. That could honestly be cheaper.
Right.
So I think that overall, I think especially if we can get a Mass Trails grant for it, would be a great opportunity. Personally, I think that, but.
Yeah.
So would any of these situations that you're speaking of, be beneficial to the crossing automobile traffic there?
So realistically, what I think we would need to do is redefine that parking area there, to establish where the vehicle traffic is, but these won't be activated for vehicles. If we wanted to do that, that would be a much bigger project for anything to help vehicles getting out of that road. So this would just be, and I don't think Mass Trails would really care as much about us getting cars out of roads as they would about making safe pedestrian crossings.
No, I know, I just was wondering if both could be accommodated at the
So
same time.
rapid flashing beacons can't be used for vehicles. Those are just for pedestrians. The only thing we could realistically do there, you could get a flashing beacon that's just a flashing yellow light up overhead. That's kind of expensive for not, what I would consider not very, they're not very effective. There's, I'd say, little to no chance that the intersection would qualify for a traffic signal.
Hmm.
Oh, I wouldn't take a signal, but maybe
Yeah,
maybe a
I don't
sign
know,
from
man.
either direction.
Yeah,
saying that there's
we
a
could definitely put up signs.
dangerous intersection or.
Yep. Advisory speeds, we could do a speed study and see if that corner would qualify for a lower speed limit there.
Lucy?
Yes, you know, on the Route 122 in Ocam, where the rail trail crosses, there are the.
Rumple
yeah,
strips.
rumble strips.
Yeah.
Could we consider those there?
I personally wouldn't wanna put those there. Anyone who lives within about a mile of it would hear every time a car goes over it. The
But
ones
They're
are,
effective.
they are effective, but they're very tiresome if you have residences in the area. So I'm personally a fan of pursuing something along these lines. I think the Mass Trails grant went out, the deadline would have been last week for that, if I'm not mistaken. So it'd probably be next year that we'd apply for it, but I think that's something, I know I've been talking with Tammy more, and we're very interested in getting more grants going. She's actually going to a Complete Streets class soon, so we can start working on Complete Streets funding for some of our other pedestrian and multimodal projects that we'd like to see around town, and get more grant funding in all those areas, so.
I think I would ask the board to vote support for this initiative and to probably spend the next several months accessing information sufficient to move us toward this goal within the next 18 months.
I would make that motion.
We have that motion.
Sorry, Sandy.
Yes. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to authorize the town or the board to take action on this matter, and with the next 18 months, hopefully to have, I don't know, perhaps the flashing lights in place.
That's great. Thank you. So I got that quote. 26K is where they are without the remote activity.
Without,
Without.
okay, so so what they got was a $30,000 grant, and then they are paying the
I
rent?
don't know the grant numbers and all that,
Okay,
how they're pursuing all the funding sources. I think they did do a little bit of ARPA too, maybe,
okay,
but,
Yeah, I think especially too, if the ones in Hubbardston are battery powered with solar, if we are hardwiring into our overhead lines, that's gonna bring the cost down, and then we're not replacing batteries every 4 years,
right.
so.
And I would say they have the solar issue that you talked about, that we have there, they have that at Williamsville Road as well. Lots of trees and not much sun.
You'd have a bit more sun in Williamsville, I think, than where we're looking at. Just the way the hills go down
Yeah.
and the trees,
Yeah.
it's a really bad spot solar-wise, as far as getting electricity, getting solar power for the one in Barre. The one in Hubbardston, I'd have to look at, I don't know.
Okay. We have a motion made and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
We have a unanimous vote. Okay, moving on. You have other
Thank you
things, Mike?
for bringing that,
Sorry.
appreciate it.
Mike, you have other?
We're on the agenda for the DPW board for next Monday
Yes,
night, so
yeah.
we'll see all of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, just pray there's no snow and we're sitting in by ourselves and they're out plowing.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you very much. Appreciate you coming. Okay.
Stay for a little bit.
Um,
Outside, or you all set?
In order, we have not taken the formal and official vote to appoint town administrator as the chief procurement officer. We need to take that official vote. Tammy has the credentialing and has taken all of the tests required in order to assume that position. In addition to that, she has a number of years of experience doing procurement. A procurement officer is not an easy job, it is a technical job, it is a detailed-oriented job, and it is really essential. We are happy to seek to make this appointment, and I would look for someone to make a motion.
I move to appoint Tammy as the town administrator to be the chief procurement officer for the town of Barre.
Second motion.
We have a motion made and seconded to appoint Tammy as the chief procurement officer for the town of Barre, effective immediately. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Tammy. One more job for you. Okay, we have boards and committees. We have some votes for folks who are seeking to join, to be appointed to a commission, and people seeking to be, resign. So, anyway, moving forward, Historical Commission, an appointment, a request from Michael Perkins. I know we have a Historical Commission representative here. If you would make a comment, if you have any, otherwise we will move toward the appointment.
I actually advocate Mike Perkins for his appointment, and I asked him if he would. We are only 3 members on the Barre Historical Commission. We're supposed to be 5. So the minimum quorum is 3, and unless all 3 of us are present, we can't have a meeting. And so we should be 5. If you would, Mike, I have known all his life.
Mhm.
He would be a wonderful member of the Barre Historical Commission. That would be 4. We'll seek a 5th, 6th, and 7th, which we're allowed up to. And so I would advocate for his appointment.
Thank you.
And I hope you will appoint him.
Okay.
I believe we've had that advertised for quite a while now. Hopefully more people will wanna come forward and join as well.
One more would be wonderful. Any
Great.
others would be
A
exceptional.
lot of people in the room, maybe you're gonna get a couple people interested.
Great.
We have a motion to approve?
I would move to appoint Michael Perkins as a member of the Historical Commission,
Effective immediately?
effective immediately,
Thank you.
We have a motion made and seconded. Further comments?
well, effective being sworn in.
Yeah.
So,
After his appointment.
yeah.
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 Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, we have an appointment of Michael Perkins, thank you, Michael. Library trustee resignation, and this is very sad. This individual has been an amazingly important and helpful individual, not only in the library area, but also in other projects. I believe she serves on the Historical Commission as well. Charlotte Gareau is seeking to resign her position due to health reasons. We accept that resignation?
I move to accept the resignation of Charlotte Gareau from the Library Trustees.
I have a motion made and seconded.
Second.
I would just ask that the board include her, we accept her resignation with regret. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resignation, we have two individuals seeking to resign from the council,
We have one on the agenda.
one resignation from the Council on Aging, an individual, Linda Payne.
I move to accept the resignation of Linda Payne with our appreciation for the work that she's done.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to accept the resignation of Linda Payne, and with appreciation for the work that she has done. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have an appointment for the Council on Aging, an Alfred Hamel. Alfred Hamel has indicated his interest in serving on the Council on Aging.
All right. I would move to appoint Alfred Hamel to the Council on Aging.
Second
We
motion.
have a motion made and seconded to appoint Alfred Hamel to the Council on Aging. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sandy, do you have offhand how many open spots there? Yeah.
Two.
Okay. So I guess we don't need to update that on the web where it's advertised. It's still at 2. Great.
Okay.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, moving to the request to use town property, unless you have a question. You have a question?
I do not.
Okay. Request to use town property, we have a request to use the town hall for youth gathering. Do you have any information on that, Sandy, you'd like to share with
Yeah,
us?
just for 4 weeks, some high school students, they're just gonna do a get-together, pizza and music.
Do you know time of day, and do you know what supervision will be available for them?
It would be, it's on the request form,
Okay,
Abby, I don't remember her last name, her and her husband.
okay.
Is
so-
it, I think it's like a church.
It's a church youth group?
Something.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. I just wanted to make sure we had supervision.
Yes, oh yes.
Not that I'm concerned about youth gatherings, but, so we do have two individuals who have indicated that they will be serving as, shall we say, chaperones or whatever for those events. And those events are, how many, 4 times?
Just 4 Mondays.
4 Mondays. Any other questions from,
And then any other fees associated with it have gone through? If there's any?
yeah,
What's that?
any fees or anything like that?
She knows it'll cost
Okay.
each evening, so.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right.
And obviously, subject to their cleaning and so forth.
Yes.
and-
I take care of all.
I know you
that.
do.
All right.
We need a motion?
I move to approve the request to use town property by Abigail Stefano. For the
Second.
town hall on,
For-
February 26th, March 4th, March 11th, and March 18th from 4 to 10 p.m.
4 to 10?
Well,
Yeah.
that, she was, because she wants to get in there early to set up and then have time to clean when they're done, so she did,
That's the time we're blocking it off for. That's fine.
yeah, that's all it is.
We have a motion made.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's a unanimous vote. Center Common Barre Farmers Market.
Yes. All right.
That is the typical farmers market dates and
May to-
times.
May to October.
May to October.
All right, I would move to approve the use of the center common for the Barre Farmers Market for every Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., May 1st through October 31st.
We have a motion made to authorize the use of the, when you say the center common, to me, the center common is the bandstand common. Is that correct?
It's that area.
Okay, so it's behind there, that, where we have the ice rink
Yeah,
right now?
yeah.
Got it. Okay, just making sure we're at the same common.
Yeah.
We have a motion made to utilize for
There's comment,
this.
Second.
May I say historically, that's the South Common?
South Common?
Thank you, Thank you, Lucy.
I know it, Marty.
Oh,
Okay.
you know what, it is listed as the South Common on the application.
Yeah,
That's,
okay.
that's,
Oh, yeah.
so yes, it is listed for the South Common on here.
Okay. Okay, so the South Common for the Barre Farmers Market, those in favor?
Aye.
We have a motion made, second, okay. Q Drug Purple Prevention Ribbons, Town Common and other areas in the community, covered with a little bit of purple in a couple months, weeks, I should say. This is typical, it's done on an annual basis, it's part of that Q Drug program that is grant funded and is a very active program during the course of the year. We have a motion to allow the Q Drug people to put the purple ribbons and the purple bulbs and the, so on across the common and across the town. They do it in all the commons, I
Yeah,
think.
all the comments, yeah.
And they're very good at getting it all picked up and out of the way after a very brief time.
I do believe last year we at least made mention of North Common where the monuments are.
Yeah, they don't
Right.
go over there.
It's not going to include North Common where.
Right.
Yeah. So I would move to approve the purple ribbon celebration, I guess,
Of Q Drug,
for Q Drug, for purple ribbons during the weekend of February 24th and 25th, to be removed by the weekend of March 9th and 10th.
we have a motion second.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded for the request of the Q Drug individuals who are seeking to, dress the common and other areas in purple. Those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous vote. Moving on to the annual license renewal vote for motor vehicle A and B auto marketing Class 2 license. This is a common request from the same individual vendor. So those, any issues of concern here, Sandy, at all?
Nope.
We have no issues of concern. This is just an annual renewal.
I move to approve the motor vehicle license renewal Class 2 for A and B auto marketing.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to approve the motor vehicle licensing of A and B auto marketing. Those in favor?
Aye.
Looks like a vote. Okay, moving on to wage authorization. We just have one individual here. This is for Matthew Hall, an on-call fire paramedic. Looks, when it says FD 8 minimum, okay. You have your documents there? There's an. Any questions, concern? Okay, so we need a motion.
I move to approve the wage authorization for Matt Hall for $27.24 per hour as an FD8 min on-call.
We have a motion. We
Second.
have a motion made and seconded for the wage authorization for Matthew Hall submitted by the chief. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, looks like a vote. Okay, now, we are at an area where we will have some, I think, interaction with the audience. And so I would call on those individuals from the not Taxpayer, but the Barre Taxpayers Association who have submitted to the selectmen a letter with some concerns and critique and seeking some information. But I would ask Mr. Anders, as representative of that group, to make a presentation if he so chooses, or to ask questions if that is the way in which he would like to proceed, so that we can work together on this matter. Indeed.
First, before we get started to the meat of it, I just wanna say that this is to make the town better. We wanna work together and make some strides forward. So it's not a witch hunt, we're not looking for
Well, I know that I'm the only witch, so I'm saying that's good, it's not a witch hunt.
a warlock.
There could be male witches.
Well, I know, but let's not get into that scene.
So,
Could I ask you, Mr. Anders, would you mind, like, kind of facing in between, because I don't think the people in the audience can hear you. And I wanna make sure, it's a better chair even.
that's good, get out of it easier. So, I hope, did everyone hear that? I wanna make this a friendly gathering. So I would like, because I know you've had a chance to address and look and do some research, would you like to intro with what you found? So we can start with what's commonly known.
Okay, I think we could do that. What I would like to do is to make sure I give, you know, when we have the chief here as well. So would you mind joining us up here, chief, just because there's a lot of dates and times and all of that stuff? And as individuals, as, you know, I speak only for myself at this particular time to say, I can understand the complexity of what happened here. And I just wanted to give you just a little bit of background as you all sit there and say, how come there's confusion? Okay, I would say that this is a situation where during the time frame of these events, we've had 3 different treasurers, 2 different legal firms representing us, couple new select board members, a chief who was deployed in another part of the world for, I think, from January last to this previous December. And there's no question that we had some grants that we had arrived. We had 3 different town managers, because we had an interim, we have a new one who's just learning about all of this herself. So I would just say that John spent some time putting together a rather comprehensive look at what happened during the course of this time that you're asking information about. And
as these are going out, these are timelines that I put together of what happened. I do just want to note that on page 4, or actually beginning on page 3, going on to page 4, that opinion area is my personal opinion, not the opinion of the board, but it's just to help clarify some of the decisions that were made from my perspective. And I'm happy to go over all of that today. I wanted to at least get this out so we're all, really tried to stick just to facts on the first.
And I would ask that the chief also, as we walk through this, if there, would you like questions during the presentation, or would you like to just go through the presentation and then entertain questions?
Why don't I walk through the timeline, and then we can start breaking it down wherever there's questions. We'll just at least do one run through where this all started, how we got to where we are. Starting in December of 2021. So this has been a long road to get where we are. So in December of 2021, Chief Rogowski put together a grant request. It was for $675,000. And I believe that was one that was submitted pretty much every year by you and was rejected every year?
Yes.
Up until that point?
The Assistance to Firefighter Grant is really the main large sum grant that fire departments across the country are eligible for. There's 2 categories. There's equipment and apparatus. They allow you, there's actually 3 categories. They only allow you to submit 1 grant. You have to pick the category. Because vehicles are so hard, they allow you to submit 2, an equipment grant and an apparatus. So we submit for 2 grants every year, equipment and an apparatus one. We've been successful. We've done it a few times. 249,000 for air packs one year, 60,000 for a SCBA compressor. So this grant for the engine tanker has been submitted for the last, I've done it personally for at least 7, maybe 9 years. And we have not gotten it. The vehicles are extremely hard. The grant opens for 30 days to submit. It opened in November, mid-November of 21, closed just before Christmas in December of 21. And so I start writing them about a month early because it is quite a process. So I started this grant at the end of October, beginning of November, and I think I officially submitted on the 15th of December.
And the chief has been the individual, who's been the chief for a number of years. And so this is not new news for him. This is, okay.
No.
All of the selectmen who sit here this evening were not here, sitting in these chairs when this grant was applied for.
Interesting, yeah. So 2022, at the annual town meeting, the funds were appropriated for a new fire truck, the engine tanker, we're gonna call it in this timeline, and to replace engine 5 in South Barre, and for a new ambulance. So I do know that it was said at that meeting that if this grant was awarded, it could be used towards this truck. And ideally, that would have been $675,000 of the $700,000 truck, which would have been phenomenal. But the grant, we did get awarded the grant on September 8th, so a bit later, and it was a modified version of the grant. So it was not for the amount that was requested. It was for $476,190.47. And this grant specifically was for a tanker that the engine we were planning to order would not qualify as. So the grant we were awarded without significant modifications to the truck we had planned on was not going to work for the truck that was appropriated for at town meeting. I believe you said it would be, I think I have it on here. It would have moved that cost for that truck in order to get the required volume of water on it and have it fit in our fire station in South Barre. It would have pushed the price up possibly over $900,000 for this
So,
truck.
One thing, that kinda happened, the cost of fire apparatus, and I think trucks, heavy trucks in general, has gone absorbently through the roof. So, when I was looking and talked to some vendors to get rough pricing on what a truck is, they were saying you could probably get what we wanted for around, because with the AFG, there is a match the town has to make, so they were saying roughly around, $700 to $750, you could probably get this engine tanker. Not to assault anybody's intelligence, a fire engine is primarily used to carry equipment. It has a pump that pumps water, puts water on the fire, basically pumps water out of ponds and hydrants. A tanker primarily carries a large volume of water. It has very minimal equipment. It carries a bag where you can dump water in, if we're in the rural sections where there's no ponds, streams, fire hydrants. When you do the AFG grant, you have to pick an apparatus and say, this is the apparatus we're requesting funding for to replace. We did that with our 1984 GMC tanker. So I put the VIN number in there, and in my narrative, I wrote in the narrative that the plan would be to replace one of our old 1990 engines and this at the same time. When I was awarded the grant said, nope, the funding was cut to $476,190, and they said, the town can do whatever they want, they can spend above and beyond, they have to spend a minimum of $500,000, can spend above and beyond, but this is all they cared about, is that one truck was getting replaced, the tanker. In that time frame, the cost of the truck from about that year went up almost about $100,000. When I had contacted the vendors and said, we got the grant, this is what we're looking for, an engine tanker, so it's basically a dual-purpose truck. It's substantially bigger. It carries tools, water. It has seating for more than five firefighters. And they were saying $850,000+, and 2 to 3 years to build. And again, so.
Yeah. So he brought this to our attention at the September 19th select board meeting. Now, this grant could be, and generally the way grants have been accepted is that the department head applies for them. When the grant comes in, they accept them and get the equipment for them. I believe that's how it's been through all departments. That is something I know we're looking at, potentially, we're considering options to change that a little bit so that the town administrator is involved more with these grants. So that's something that has come up. But he brought it to us. It did not require our approval for him to accept. And he brought it to us because he wanted our opinion on it, essentially. So there was not a vote taken at that meeting, but it was brought to our attention because it could be used in a couple of different ways. So I've written out some of these options along the side there. Of course, from an engineering perspective, as soon as he brought them up to us, I was writing down numbers as he was discussing them so we could not go off our feelings, but off of the numbers. And with any, cost-benefit analysis, you're gonna start with your option 0. What if we do nothing? So as dumb as it might seem, the first consideration is, what if we just don't accept the grant? So what that would cause is we would still get our tanker engine that we appropriated for at town meeting for the cost that it was going to cost. And, it seems silly to consider, but it's always important to consider the no option. So then we had our option 1, which was to use the grant toward the engine tanker. Because of the change in requirements, it was going to increase the cost to, $850,000 to $900,000 for the grant to be applied for that truck, if we were gonna apply the grant to it. So what this $400,000 plus, let me be clear, $476,000 grant would do, because it would raise the cost of the truck, would only effectively save the town $285,000. I say only, but that obviously is a large chunk of money. That is, I don't wanna take that for granted. The other alternative is that option 2 was that we used the grant for exactly what it was given to us for, which is to buy a tanker truck to replace it with. So, a tanker to replace it. And that would give us the full benefit of that grant of $476,000. So it was, to modify the other truck was adding things to it that weren't particularly beneficial to Barre. And to use the grant for what it was intended, what it was given to us for, about doubled the value to us of that grant, and gave us a replacement for 2 trucks, actually, replacing 2 other vehicles.
And part of that, after getting awarded the grant and looking at the numbers and talking with the vendors and trying to figure out how to build this truck and what it was gonna cost, we have the town of Barre has 4 fire engines, and we have 1 tanker, the 84. So what I wanted to do is get rid of 1 engine and the tanker to go to 3 fire engines and a tanker. This option 2 plan is what I presented to the board, is in South Barre are the 2 fire engines that we're replacing at Fire Station 2 on Main Street. One of the engines still needs to be replaced. We purchased it used, we had a 1987. It was prior to me becoming chief. Something happened mechanically, it was unfeasible to fix. So we got $100,000 at the town meeting of FY17, so in 2016, to buy a used truck as a temporary replacement, which we did. And so we have the 1990 and the 2002, which was a used truck. Knowing what the fire trucks cost, in good faith, I can't stand up at town meeting and ask for $800,000 down to replace that truck. So I thought with this option, we could get rid of an engine, get the tanker, with the tanker put a little bit of options to put a bigger pump on it and allow it to be a dual purpose. It doesn't replace an engine, but it still has the firefighting capabilities for pumping water. It doesn't carry as many people, doesn't have as much equipment, but can do the job. So to go from 4 engines to now 3 engines, and less maintenance, less oil changes, less tires, everything that goes along, less mechanical breakdowns. So that was option 2, which I presented to the select board, and in full transparency, I made sure, the reason I wanted to go to the select board is because I know at town meeting, I said, this was my plan. Things had changed from that plan, and I wanted to get the select board's opinion on. And my personal, professional opinion, option 2 was in the long run, saving the most money to the taxpayer.
Just a quick question. When you say reduce, so getting rid of an engine, getting rid of the old tanker,
Yes.
are those being sold? Are you recovering funds when those are
So
released?
the tanker, because of the grant, part of the deal with the grant is the truck cannot be used as for firefighting anymore, so there's no value to that truck. The town could put it on municipal bid, and I'm sure
Okay.
it can go on municipal bid. I would not even know what it would cost, what it could get for
Right.
money. The engine does have some trade-in value, so the prices of the truck included some trade value.
Okay.
At the time, the trade value, we're talking 2022, the trade value may be a little less than now. Currently,
And
yeah.
I do address that later. We don't
Alright.
want to get too deep into what the value of the truck is, because we are hoping to sell it at this point. We don't want to put ourselves in a bad position for negotiating that.
Can I ask, when you say that the grant specifies that the tank you're replacing cannot be used, can't be used by the town of Barre,
Cannot be used for firefighting
Anywhere.
anywhere.
for any community?
Right, so we couldn't gift it to another community, another community couldn't purchase it to use as a fire, it has to not be a fire truck. If a farmer wanted it to water the fields
I see.
or shuttle water for cows, that could be used, but it can't be used for fire.
But the engine is something that
Right.
we could sell, another town could still use for fire. It retains additional value because of
That
that.
has, the engine the grant has nothing to do with the engine.
Right.
The grant specifically targeted.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I did bring some pictures, because I know you start talking about engine numbers, it can get confusing. It's just on my laptop if anybody's
No,
looking.
that's
Good.
I'm-
Yep.
Chief, at the meeting, of September 19, 2022,
Yes.
you noted that if I remember correctly, if we did not use the grant toward the tanker, that at some point in the near future, I believe it was within 5 years, the town would you would probably come back to the town and say that we needed to buy 2 more pieces of equipment at approximate cost of 1.6 million.
Yes.
Okay, so the way I look at this is that by accepting the grant, the $700,000 that we approved at the annual town meeting, and an additional $25,000 above the grant, we got a fire truck and the tanker at an average cost of $362,500 versus 1.6 million buying them separately. I also noted at the meeting that Chief Rogowski said, under the State Strong Chief Act, he didn't have to come to the Board of Selectmen and ask them if he could accept the grant, if he could spend the grant, anything. Under the Strong Chief law, correct me if I'm wrong, a fire chief can do basically whatever they want and then say to the board or selectman or mayor, here's your bill. We bought this, the town now has to figure out a way to pay for it.
Within some bounds, as far as
Right, so,
appropriating
but
funds.
he did come to the board.
Yes.
Yes, oh yeah,
So-
which was not necessary, but
Right,
it was
but
greatly appreciated.
I'm looking at, as I looked at all the numbers, I'm saying, okay, we got $1.6 million worth of equipment for $725,000.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good deal. When you look at all the numbers,
So, and I think we can, well, I'll get into that a little bit deeper too, as far as the long-term impacts of that. So, just as we work through this though, to make sure we're clear on what happened when for everybody. So on September 29th, he did accept that grant. I'm sorry, September 20th, he accepted that grant.
I didn't accept it till after the select board.
Yep, so it was the day after, because why would you wait at that point? It's a 30-day window that's closing
Right.
fast. September 29th, the purchase agreement for the engine tanker and the ambulance that were appropriated at the 2022 annual town meeting were signed by our town administrator, who was our procurement officer, so that those large purchases still go through our procurement officer in town. And on that same day, the tanker that was funded by the grant was also signed for by our town administrator at the time. So those 3 vehicles, their purchase agreements were signed on September 29th of 2022. Now, those agreements, the funding for those had to be signed off by town council. We changed town council between when we started this process and when we got to this point in April of 2023. The new town council didn't approve of the way it had been worded at the previous town meeting in 2022.
The lease purchase.
For the lease purchase, yeah. So at the special town meeting in April of 2023, on April 25th, they were put back up, the items were put back to the town. They were essentially just changes in wording because the new council that we had in town wouldn't sign off on it the way it was before. But it didn't change what was being funded. So it was still.
And it was a very large vote in favor.
I believe it's actually unanimous. if you
I
look
think
at
it was
minutes.
unanimous too, but
I
I
have
don't
the
want to
minutes
say
if
that
we
in
need
case.
them, if anyone cares about that, but. So then on June 20th, the select board, we received the lease terms from the leasing company. We designated Maureen Marshall to represent the board. That was unanimous process. And then at a later select board meeting on August 21st, the lease agreement language was updated and we approved that as well, which actually saved us $36 per year. Not that that's a huge number, but, so that's everything timeline-wise. And that's where it is now. We have our lease agreement in place and we have these trucks ordered. I did wanna go over some of the additional benefits of option 2 that we aren't particularly, and I think you've kind of covered some of those so far, but by reducing the number of vehicles we have, there's a reduced maintenance cost by not having the existing tanker anymore. We eliminate the maintenance cost of that because we've removed a truck. Reduced maintenance cost versus engine 1 because as a newer truck, it's going to have less maintenance on it. There was also which comes back to the larger price tag if we waited to purchase trucks the next year. There was going to be a minimum of a $20,000 addition to any future purchases because of changes in federal regulations. So we were able to avoid that by getting this at the time that we did. I believe that was going into effect, a few months later? October 1st. So we were.
2025, 26 EPA emission motors.
Yep. Obviously, inflation and return on current and we do have a potential return on the current value of engine 1, which we are intending to sell and, would be applied to, so the town for the grant has to cover a certain amount. I have that amount about $30,000. I think it was a little less than that actually. It was
23.
Yep. 23,000 and change. So certainly we're optimistic that, any transactions would cover that, and that's not something that will need to go before town meeting to appropriate funds for. I will note too, we had at the time, at least I personally believed that ARPA funds could be used as part of that match. We found out since that's not the case. ARPA funds are not an option, so it would be either covered by the cost of the sale of an engine, which I would be confident would be sufficient, or we would have to go to town meeting to ask for the $30,000 or $27,000 match. So that is something that could come up in the future regarding this. So that's the issues with the town match. I do, want to address a little bit about the need for these vehicles too. I think, it seems like there's a lot of new vehicles coming in all at once, but that really relates back to a long stretch without new vehicles. So it's now it would be 3 engines, a tanker, and a ladder, right? So 5 large vehicles, I'm gonna call them, because I, need to simplify things a little bit for myself. But, so 5 large vehicles, and each of them, theoretically, the average I found looking into this is a 20-year lifespan. But I know you've kept trucks for usually around 30 years.
Yeah,
We really push them.
we spec the trucks with some options like galvanized frame wheels and stainless steel bodies, so we're expecting to get 30 years out of each truck versus the 20.
Yeah. And so having 5 large vehicles that we're trying to rotate through 30-year lifespans of, if you break that down, that's every 6 years we'd be expecting to get a new vehicle, as long as we have 5 large vehicles that we're working our way through. Right now, if you put the average age of those together, the average age is 22 years old on those 5 vehicles. With a cycle like this, you would want your average age to be between 12 years when you just bought a new one and 18 years when one's ready to retire. That's what your average age should be. We're way over that. There was a pretty significant gap, in the early 2000s where we weren't getting a new vehicle every 6 years.
We didn't buy one for 20 years.
The 20-year stretch with no new vehicles, when we should be getting one every 6 years to stay on top. It was kicking the can down the road. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It was, saving a little bit of money now to have a bigger issue later on for someone else to deal with. And now we're someone else. So, I mean, that's where we're at with that. So if we replaced just engine 5 and put the grant towards that, that would have reduced our average age to 17 years on our vehicles, which means in 1 year, our average age would be at the point where we'd want to replace one. In 1 year time, it would be at the point we want to replace one. By replacing both of these, it actually brings it right to 12 years. So it's right where we want to be going forward. And that's not to say the road ahead is easy going forward, because we still have 2 trucks that were built in the 90s, which means in 6 years we'd want to replace one of those. That gives the chief a very difficult task of making one of those last 12 years if possible. And then the real hard part is in 18 years from now, when we can either keep to this cycle, sell one that is not at its end of life, and continue to build for our future, and actually, start putting money ahead on trucks, so that we're not paying interest every single time. We can get to that point in 18 years, or in 18 years we can say, well, we don't need it right now, kick it down the road. And that's gonna be a really big decision. If we can stay on track for the next 18 years, that's gonna be the hard part, realistically, in my opinion, is 18 years from now, making that hard move to move on from a truck that still has life in it, so that we can be on track and not put, the next generation in the same spot where they need a lot of trucks in a short time span. So that's my opinion on it as far as going forward.
And we're reducing.
Yep, and reducing down a vehicle. So that would be our pattern to stay on with 5 large trucks.
There's no question that I concur with John's analysis of this matter, and I know that you were a brand-new select board member and didn't have anything to do with all of this. But at any rate, I concur completely with his overview. I will say, on behalf of the board, and obviously, that in hindsight, we probably should have had a meeting like this, just as a public hearing or a public forum, not that the group would have had an opportunity to vote on it, but that they would have understood why we decided to move forward in the direction that we did. That probably would have been, hindsight's always 20/20, and certainly the questions that you put forward to us, we understand why the confusion. I don't think for 1 minute that anybody was out to get the board or to get the chief or to, it made no sense from our perspective, because most people were only at the meeting, June meeting of '22, when the chief said, if possible, perhaps some of this grant money could be used toward the $700,000. I sat there when he said that, you sat there when he said that, and I think you even asked a question about it. In fact, I could tell you where you were sitting at Ruggles Lane. So in hindsight, I get why the confusion, I get why the, feeling of bait and switch. But I hope that walking through this matter with you in more detail, with all the players here, helps to make sense of it. And I appreciate the work that the Taxpayers Foundation will do, or I shouldn't say foundation, I guess association will do for the community. There is no question that having individuals watchdog us a little bit, pushing us for more transparency. Sometimes we believe we're very transparent. We think we talk about everything here, and why would they not know about that?
Oh,
But
for sure, I spew out numbers all the time thinking everyone knows what's coming out of my mouth, because it made sense in here, but it didn't make sense when it came out. So I absolutely wanna, slow it down and just cause, my brain's running faster than my mouth can, I wanna, make sure we're all on the same page about why. And, I think just going back to transparency, it doesn't mean everyone's always gonna agree, but I always wanna be open about why
we do
I
what we do.
moved or advocated for something in a certain direction.
So, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do that, Joe.
Absolutely.
First of all, I wanna own something else besides we wanna do this friendly, because we wanna get town and Barre on a better footing, a better transparency.
Mhm.
And, I have a lot of love for the fire department, 'cause I used to be a fireman.
No.
And, so, I just wanted to put that out there, so Chief knows I'm not on a hunt for anything about him either. Transparency is one word, but there's a lot more to this. And yeah, it could have been handled a lot more differently, and it could have been more forthrightly, and we need to do that.
Mhm.
Not just about this, the taxpayers took this on because it was right there in our face.
Mhm.
But there are many other issues that still need to be addressed.
Mhm.
And I'm more content with this after hearing this, because it did seem like the taxpayers didn't get a vote on it,
Right.
and I
No, I
still
get
think
that.
they did. But
Mhm.
I understand that it was a wise choice.
Mhm.
It was the best thing that the town could do for its pocketbook and for the citizenry. And we still need to clean up this transparency.
Mhm.
So you've all started to talk about it. Where do we go forward from this? how can we make this a fait accompli? Like, how do we
I
make
mean,
it complete?
there's a lot of areas we're looking at. One of them that's particularly important to me, I think it might have been the 22 meeting that there was a citizen's petition to have all transactions online.
Mhm.
And we're actually moving now,
Mhm.
Tammy's working on putting together, sorry.
A way to do that.
The term's dropping on my head, but,
Checkbook, like, yeah.
but essentially every purchase, a purchase order system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the purchase orders, once we have a purchase order system where every department is using this same system,
Mhm.
there's no one getting things through their department budgets in different ways, so we are at least very, very clearly aware of everything. Once we get that system in place, so that we know where everything's going, more so than just looking at later statements, so that everything is getting approved before we get statements later. Once we have that in place, that then can translate to being put online so everyone can see it, and that's ultimately the goal of that.
Okay,
So-
what's the timeline on that?
So to have the purchase order system in place, do we have a timeline on that?
Right now is budget season, so I'm getting through all that, so.
So I mean, if we can get purchase orders in place by the end of the year, I
End
think
of
would be
year, yeah,
ideal.
that'd be nice, let's get something.
I know it's not as fast as we might want it, but
So when I brought this before the town, before the select board, whoever that
Yep.
board was, none of you may have been then, I was told that the coding for each of the articles, the way the accounting system is set up, was off two different software systems.
That is still the case.
that is, yeah.
Well, we need to fix that.
Well,
And that,
no, I
No,
agree with you. Listen, I am
I
the biggest
understand,
supporter of
but
that.
I heard this years ago,
I hear you.
okay? And it's not, we're not going to 1000 West Street here. But years ago,
Mm-hmm,
that this was gonna be addressed,
Mhm.
and it hasn't.
mm-hmm.
So how do we get to that point?
Well, we
And
get,
don't tell me the end of the year to do that,
well,
because I know that the CIC grants
mhm,
available for software,
Mhm.
and I suggest that we take one,
mhm,
and that's what it's for,
mhm,
to get new software, and not wait a year.
mhm.
Can that happen?
I would just tell you that, obviously, we've had 3 different treasurers since I've been, since
understand.
I've been here. So now we have a treasurer who has excellent command of his job. He knows what he's doing and he does it extremely well. We have that in place. We have his somewhat longevity of about 18 months being with us. That makes it easier for us to begin to grapple with that. We also have a town administrator whose background is very financially oriented. She is more of a financial officer.
Cut to the quick, what's the
I,
timeline?
I would not.
Best guess.
My best guess, I would really wanna sit down with the board and with her and look at all of the parameters of doing this and not just throw out something to make you feel good tonight.
I well feel good.
I
I'm
really
trying to have
would
this
say to you
conversation.
that in order to make this decision and make it work, we have to have some training for individuals.
doesn't-
We have to make an adjustment in what, software we're gonna use, get everybody on board with that, the training. And so I would say, Tammy, you have to talk with your team and you have to come to our meeting next time and say, I think this would be a reasonable, okay?
So I will say I have talked with the team in regards to this. Now, I am someone who does come from the accounting background, the financial side of things, and you can't just go ahead and go into another program just like that. You have to make sure that everyone's on the same page and that they're
Yeah.
ready to do so. I don't feel that that is the case right now, not everyone
I
is.
don't think so either.
So with that being said, right now, what I am doing is we are having finance meetings, me, the treasurer, the accountant, and, the assessor. We're gonna be all meeting every month, and I'll be making sure everything is on time. All cash reconciliations are on time, all journal entries are being done, everything is going to be done. That's the fine print right there, is making sure that everything is on time and it's being done. Whether you have you could have the same systems in order, if one person knows how to use it and the other one doesn't know how to use it, you're gonna be in the same boat, so that's not gonna
I
help us.
agree. So how is the citizenry going to be alerted to all of these transitions so that this does not happen when you're doing software?
So I will tell you
Okay.
that we are gonna be looking at a new town website for our town, and I'm hoping to get onto the Facebook status and be able to put things out there as to what we are doing and when we are doing it. So everybody in the town will see exactly where we're at and where we're, growing. You gotta give us time to grow, I just came over here. So, I have to see everything, what we're looking at, and that gives us time to see where we have to go. I mean, I agree with you, we definitely have to get things in order. My whole main point is making sure that that audit, which everybody knows, was not the best audit that we've had. So my goal is to obviously bring that audit up and see where we can make changes, what can we do to make things better. And with that being said, that's my goal right now.
So, I'm standing here and I'm saying, that's great.
Mhm.
I love it. I love that it's being listened to. I wanna know what the step is that includes some input, so things don't just get side railed.
Mm-hmm,
Cause that's what I've seen happen
mm-hmm,
repeatedly.
mm-hmm.
So I'm looking to hear how this is gonna be implemented.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's in 2 weeks or a year, how, you know, what, along the way, there's a lot of waypoints between here and a year from now.
Mhm.
And I think that something like this needs to be put out on a weekly basis or a monthly basis somehow, that I know, or we know as a taxpayer, where it's going, how it's all gonna unfold.
Mhm.
Then all of a sudden be blindsided that something went awry or it didn't happen, so that there's continuity.
Mhm.
If there isn't continuity, we're back to this again.
Mhm.
So, and I hear you need time to address it, but I wanna know that how these taxpayers are gonna come out fair or better, so that they know what's going on in our town.
Mhm.
It's not fair what's going on right now.
Well, it's not, as you would say, as transparent as any of us would like. And figuring out a mechanism for improving that transparency is critical. I would suspect that the board with the new town administrator have had very few days, very few weeks, to actually sit down and say, what are those specific steps? Basically, I know we had retro pays to pay for all of the employees because of contracts that have been, completed. We're still locked in negotiations with one group and not having a quick or successful work there. But at any rate, there's so much on her plate, it would be difficult for me to say to her, give us a calendar tomorrow. I think we need to be reasonable about, we have a new website that we're meeting with and going over. We have all sorts of other issues we have. We have some situations with employees that we're working through. We have negotiations we're still working through with a couple individuals and with the police department. So it's not that we're standing still. And I understand your frustration, because you want me to say, by April 13th, this will be in place. I don't know if, Tammy, you and I or the board is able to give a date certain. I think it's fair for you to ask us, and I think the requirement has to be, we have to come up with a calendar, that we sit down and we mull over and we have a reasonable expectation that we can deliver.
So waypoints.
Yeah, because if we can't.
And that's gonna be shared with us?
Yes, absolutely, I'm happy to do it.
Short answer is we don't have a timeline on that,
I
but
got
we
that.
can put together, there's some really good initiatives, we're gonna have to prioritize them, but,
Yeah.
and there was also some comment.
I was just confused what we were actually talking about.
Oh, okay, about,
Any of it, honestly, like,
Gotcha.
what, the transparency thing, how we veered off from a fire truck, transparency, the dates, what are we trying to make transparent here?
Everything.
so, primarily the question right now is
Do
of,
our town
of,
employees have time to do all this?
Well,
And
probably,
get their jobs done?
well, probably not.
Okay,
I mean,
that was my question.
we're a little understaffed, there's no question, in,
Exactly.
especially the human resource area, and, so on and so forth, and we haven't, made any attempt to add staffing to the, I wanna say the central office or the district office or whatever, but, we know that there are things the 3 part-time selectmen can't necessarily, complete in a part-time status. And I would say that, the time that people are committing to this job is a lot. And there are some days that I think I'm working full-time, but,
essentially what it comes down to is a big task on Tammy to prioritize.
yeah.
There's a lot of initiatives that we want to move forward, some of those need to get prioritized, and I think having calendars with goals is gonna be
Yep.
helpful for making sure we stay on those tasks, but it's gonna have to be, like a project timeline where things do get changed and moved as needed. I mean, but we can regularly update that so everyone knows and can ask, why was this moved out? Why is this delayed? What, and sometimes it's just gonna be, there were, a significant number of personnel issues that took precedent over,
Mhm.
A software change at this point, or there was an opportunity we had to apply for a grant and that was time sensitive, so we prioritized that over a longer term project for this short time period.
And I think another thing that we should be very transparent with the community, and I don't think boards previous or this board have been, is your capital assets. The capital assets in this, community are not, nobody pays attention to them. Everybody just thinks it's an old town hall and so it's old. They think that this building, there's been nothing done on these buildings other than if they just flooded and then we had to run and do something. And we know we have to give some time and attention to that.
It's another one of those issues with any of these facilities that if we don't take action now, next generation's gonna have a much bigger bill than we would have had now to handle some of these problems.
And putting together, the multiple strands of our work for the public to look at and to appreciate, we should spend the time to do it. And even if we take some ARPA money and we hire an individual secretarial type person who can put the stuff down on paper for us, to get those things out the door. Not a permanent position, but something that a person that we can utilize to help us bring together all the paperwork, to present it to the public in a much more reasonable and readable and transparent fashion. Because I will tell you, I don't know how many hours you spend a week, because it's a lot. And it's a lot of time. I have been in mediation for literally hour after hour after hour after hour in what we call the virtual room. Sometimes just sitting there for 5 hours because the other side hasn't had anything to say. So we've had a lot of contracts to negotiate this year, so that's taken a lot of time. We've had, you've been deployed. We've had people fixing and filling in holes that, have been amazing what the fire department has done in your absence. You should be very proud. They did an amazing job for us. We know that we're trying to work out with other communities opportunities to collaborate and increase our ability to work together. I'm meeting on a bi-monthly basis with all of the other town representatives. And you and I attended one of those meetings regarding schools and what's happening with rural aid and other legislative actions. We're meeting with Ann Goby, who is now the director of rural affairs. She's no longer our senator. I know, it's too bad, really.
Oh, no, it's good.
Oh, it's good, yeah. Well, at any rate, and so I would just tell you that legislatively, you don't probably understand, but I'm very active legislatively on behalf of the community, and rural aid for schools is a huge win for us, huge win. Over $1 million to the Quabbin Regional School District under rural aid for the first time ever. $15 million in the budget. We sit around, I know you don't worry about it, but I look at the state revenues, and state revenues, are terrible. What happened just in January, the revenues that are available to spend for FY25 are getting smaller and smaller, so I worry very much about what's gonna happen in FY25 budget, because we get minimal help from the state, and it's gonna be negative minimal. But the big problem you have is the place that gets a lot of aid from the state are the schools, whether it be Monty Tech, whether it be Quabbin Regional. And when the state says, we're done paying for their certain things, we're allowing 14% increases in all of the special education placements, but we're not paying for it. And we go, what? That's what happened to us last year in this town. So we're very active in all kinds of ways. I would tell you that sometimes our activities are less than effective because we're saying, okay, I gotta do that negotiation thing, so I can't talk to Ann Goby. And I know you're on with the master plan and all the things that you work on with the streets, all the stuff that you're working on just day to day. I mean, I know we're trying to do a relatively large playground thing for the children in the community. And so that's kind of a bigger project that's gonna roll on for us now in the spring as we get that undergoing. So hopeful that we'll be able to get in better positions to provide you with the information and time frame as a set of goals and when we can reach them.
I'll look forward to that.
Okay, I will look forward to giving it to you, and when I do, I'll probably sighing, saying, oh my God, whatever.
So, just real quick, I know it has, deviated quite a bit. Are there any other questions on the fire truck aspect?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
It seems like everything that we've talked about in terms of aid to fire trucks and so forth and so on, is all by a calendar year. Now, I don't see fire trucks running down the streets of Barre every day. And I can imagine that some trucks are gonna last 30 years, because they're hardly ever used. why is the calendar the dividing factor in deciding whether we need a new fire truck? If it's 30 years old and it works and it runs good, why do you need to replace it?
There's a couple parts to that. You know, we run them over 30 if they last. The biggest issue we have are parts. Fire apparatus are custom built, and the cabs, like our 1990, the door frame, the door crank's broken, they don't make parts for it. So the window's permanently open, it's got wooden chocks holding it. We're short of a machinist making parts, we can't get parts for it. The NFPA standards have fire trucks being replaced at 20 years. Obviously, we exceed that NFPA standard. And then the other issue we run into is just parts wear out, they break. I mean, they don't make parts for pumps that are 30 years old, so when a part breaks on a pump, I mean, literally we are calling shops, and shops are calling shops to see if there's some new old stock sitting on a shelf. Certainly, you know, I don't have an issue with the truck. You know, the truck we have that's 30 still works, but it's not reliable, you know, and, you know, if there's an emergency and you go to start it, it doesn't start, that's not the time to find out that we had a mechanical issue, which has happened to us numerous times over the last, you know, few months. Battery chargers break, triple chargers break, door parts break, the pump handles break, things corrode. The biggest issue we have with trucks at 30 years is just the corrosion. Which is
Now
why.
you're talking 8 years, you're not talking 30 anyway. You're talking replacing them every 8, is that what you're saying, John?
18.
No,
So
no, 30.
each truck when it's 30 years old, so if we don't wanna replace all 5 vehicles at the same time, what that would break down to is once every 6 years, you have a 30-year-old vehicle.
The new engine that we ordered.
That's just 30 divided by 5.
I anticipate will last the town of Barre 30 years. The new tanker, I anticipate will last 30 plus years.
And my perspective is a bit different. My perspective isn't so much about the trucks falling apart at that point. My perspective is if you can run them all into the ground, which, don't get me wrong, I've done that with cars. It's an effective method at some points. But there comes a point with some of them where you can get a return on the value that's in them and replace it with one before the price continues to increase on the new one. So it's just a function of, your current value versus your current worth versus your future worth and the annual costs to do that. So, I mean, you can do out long equations to determine what those are, but essentially what it comes down to is if we push them all, and then 5 of them break down at the same time, now that generation, especially if someone's, so we went 20 years without buying a new fire truck. During that 20 years, anyone who was a taxpayer benefited to some extent of a lower tax rate because we weren't buying trucks at that time. Now we need 2 to 3 new trucks. So people who didn't receive that benefit, who've moved to town since then, who bought a house since then or who was a kid for that 20 years, they're now paying for those 3 trucks that weren't bought at appropriate times, a much higher price because of inflation, and never benefited from those tax benefits at that time. But there is a value in not running the trucks completely into the ground, getting some value out of them and applying that towards them. And the best part of this, if we're consistent and regular, we can get to a point where we're putting money ahead for trucks and we're not taking out loans and paying interest, we're accumulating interest prior to buying the trucks. And I think by the time we get, so the way I would personally map it out is in 12 years, we're replacing the last truck from the 1900s. And when we do that, we would be essentially we want to bring let me work through this. So we have a 7-year loan on this one. We want to bring that down to 6 years for the next one. And then 6 years for the one after that. The one after that, though, that's when we're trading out a newer truck. It realistically probably be the 2019. This is 18 years from now, so it's an older truck, but it's not at 30 years. Now, the value of that is we can put enough of that value that we could realistically, hopefully, have only a 3-year loan on the truck it replaces, or that replaces it. So we pay for 3 years, and then we can take that same amount of money, put that forward to the next truck, and start building that so that we're not paying interest and just throwing together a fire truck at the last minute every time something falls apart. We're ahead of the game.
I think there's a big gray area in between those two things. And I sit here listening to you, you sound like a car salesman. Okay, buy now, used car prices are up, sell it now, buy a new one, and all of that. You know you're behind the 8 ball when you do that. So I'm sorry, I don't buy it.
Okay.
Maybe
yeah,
I need to see numbers, but I
the
don't know.
gentleman behind you?
I think the easiest way to say it is if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and your house is on fire or your family member needs an ambulance, do you wanna sit in your kitchen or stand out in front of your house and hope that the firemen are on the way to the station and the fire truck's gonna start? Cause it's 30 years old and it's been exposed to the salt, the water, and everything else? Or is it easier to be like, well, they need it and it's gonna save lives?
Does that happen?
Just real
Does that
quick.
happen? Does that happen? Do you guys go to take off and the truck doesn't run? Does that happen?
Sometimes,
It does,
it does.
yeah.
It has happened recently.
Just a
Really?
point of order.
We have
Mark.
4 engines, correct?
Yep,
When most of the towns around us have 2.
yep.
I just don't see where it is that Barre ever got so big. I don't get it. Someone want to educate me with that? I'd love to hear it.
Barry's historic.
We have a department that has, now we have more people on than ever. We still have 5,000 people. We've had 5,000 people. Where did this department get, where did Barre get so big that we've had to make this department the size that it is? You know, I have nothing against the fire department, but the taxpayers want to know.
Okay, so let's take a compare.
I'm asking him.
All right.
So, since I've been on the fire department, we've had 4 engines, a ladder, a rescue, and the ambulances were separate. When I became chief in 16, we inherited the ambulances, and they had a rescue truck as well. So we got rid of that, we have the 2 ambulances. When you look at, the other towns, I have a list. They have, most of them have at least 3 engines. Holden has 4, Paxton has 2 and a tanker, a ladder, 2 engines and a tanker. Rutland has 2 engines, a ladder, and a tanker. Phillipston has 2 engines and a tanker. Templeton has 3 engines, a ladder, a tanker. Hubbardston has 3 engines. Westminster has 3 engines, a ladder. They have a tanker on order to add to that. Princeton has 3 engines, a ladder, and a tanker. Sterling has 3 engines, a ladder. Petersham has 2 engines and 2 tankers. Ware has 3 engines, a ladder, and a tanker. New Braintree has 3 engines, and Ocam has 3 engines. So, with this, hopefully we're getting rid of it, we're gonna get rid of an engine, so we're gonna go to 3 engines and a tanker. And I think when you look at, part of our response is at 45 square miles, to go from Ocam Road up, it's very large.
Yeah, but would you agree that the department has grown substantially within the last 8 years, 9 years?
Grown
8,
as-
9 years.
As like personnel.
Everything, just everything.
I mean, we have the same number of trucks as we did. We actually have less called firefighters. than we
You have a
did.
call, now you have full-time.
We do have.
You have a lot more full-time now.
We have 5.
That,
yes.
yeah. So,
With the-
is one of those engines dedicated to motor vehicle lockouts along with the ambulances? Because does you respond to those with an engine? Why would that be?
Sometimes. It depends on how the call comes in.
We don't need to roll a $700,000 engine to a motor vehicle lockout that the police won't even do anymore. We shouldn't do
I would
it.
just say that I think we're off the subject. I mean, I think this is something that we can talk about when we go to.
Well, it goes right back to
Well,
it goes right back to the, what we're buying for equipment
Well, I think.
and how we're buying
Well, let
it.
me ask you, where would you pull a truck from?
What's that?
Where would you pull a truck from?
What are you talking about?
We have 2 stations. Where are you pulling a truck from? Are you pulling it from South Barre?
I'm not a fireman.
We're not touching the
Are
trucks in
you?
South Barre, in my
Are you?
opinion.
Are you a fireman?
No, I'm not a fireman.
All right.
But I can tell you.
The fire, we had a fire at my place and everything burned down.
Okay.
So,
All right, just
okay.
to be clear, if there was no fire trucks in South Barre, the amount that the insurance would go, so my house is closer to South Barre's fire station than the one in the center. My homeowner's insurance rate, if we didn't have those trucks closer.
I understand all that.
Is going up higher
I
than the
already
taxes
understand.
are for keeping trucks there.
Okay, moving on, since this has not really been a part of the agenda, I think that this might be something more appropriate to ask the fire chief as part of his annual report, which is coming up next. The Taxpayers Association is here discussing transparency and other issues of concern. I just want to make sure that your concerns as Taxpayers Association folks, the questions that you've had or have, that we've spent some time answering those.
I'm really pleased that there's been ownership of missteps, and I'm hopeful for the future that we don't repeat them.
Okay, well, that is.
That's all I can say.
Okay, that is all.
Because there's no timeline, we don't have it, I understand you wanna give it, I wanna hear it.
Okay.
So, and the Taxpayers Association wants to move forward.
Well, as
And
do we.
reduce our taxes.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to say that we're gonna be able to reduce taxes, but
Well,
you and I
can't
both know.
say any of this.
That's gonna be
But we
very
can
difficult.
work together.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you.
Okay,
I'm done.
thank you, Mr. Andrews. I just am so happy to have you at a meeting where there's not police. Remember the old times?
I have nothing I have to say right now.
Okay. So, it's been a pleasure.
Mr. Lipson had a comment.
Mr. Lipson, before we move on.
In other words, regards to the Taxpayers Association, I look on my town government, and I look at the calendar, and there was no place where the Taxpayers Association is listed in the calendar, and I think that might be a good idea.
Well, you should request that, obviously. We're not opposed to it.
Well, can we consider this a request, that it be listed, because I did look at the other things, there are a lot of other issues that are on the calendar, that really don't even necessarily need to be on calendar, but they're there.
Yeah, I would say that obviously we're making adjustments in our website, which will adjust the My Government piece. And so I have no personal opinion negative to that. I don't know how the board feels.
I don't know that we have any policy dictating what is or isn't on there.
I don't think we do either.
Are you talking about posting like
I already
a meeting
asked
agenda?
her about that
Or
already
are you
today.
talking about just a calendar?
Oh, there's a calendar, which I made a copy.
Mm.
Mhm.
Okay, what's on there?
Because everything's related to the town, and there's nothing that's
Yeah.
non-related.
For the 14th, which is when this meeting is, there is at 6:30 PM, there's a library trustees, and there's,
Town
this
committee.
physical room in the square
Mhm.
where you could write Barre Taxpayers Association at the library.
Yeah, my only,
Excuse me, at the senior center.
I don't know if that is all just town groups or what. So I don't know if there's any bylaw or anything that we have to comply
I
with.
think we would have to ask
I
Alan.
would
Yeah.
have to find that out.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
always been
We can find out for
town
you.
board.
Yeah.
Well, I did look,
Okay.
and there are some things here that really have not,
Like-
little to no
Like,
reference, like, Monty Tech Building Subcommittee,
that's
That
a
is-
town
that is a-
committee.
That's,
like
Town.
WRTA Advisory Board,
Those are all positions we appoint to.
Yeah.
Monty Tech Advisory Committee.
Well, that's one of the schools we pay for.
We appoint to that as well.
Worcester County Conservation District, reserved first floor HWB meeting room, reserved first floor HWB meeting room.
Well, we'll look into it, you know,
So I think there's room,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think there's room for the Taxpayers Association to be listed on this calendar, that's all.
Okay.
As long as there's no problem with it, like technically from Helen's perspective, I'm great with, I
Oh,
think it's a great idea.
that's great, thanks.
We're gonna check
We-
with the
We just
town
gotta
clerk.
check and make sure we're allowed to, but otherwise, I think that's a great idea.
Oh, great, thanks a lot. We resolved something today, huh?
Well, I think we've resolved more than just
That's a
something.
plus.
Yeah.
Thanks, by the way, John, you did a nice job in explaining.
Very good, very good,
Thanks.
very well done.
I have one question about
Yeah, yeah.
the fire trucks. In my opinion, the option two of, the voted on money for the engine tanker, and then utilizing the grant for the tanker is the way to go, in my opinion, for what it's worth. But I just wanted to get some clarification. So you got the grant. Have you ordered the tanker?
Yes,
And you have a hard number of what it's gonna cost?
yes, 501,000.
Okay, so we're right around the number that's
Mhm.
required of the town to
The town had to-
contribute?
We had to spend a minimum of 500.
Yep.
Yes, and when they came in at 501,000.
It's all great.
400.
And, then there was some statement about maybe utilizing the sale of the other vehicle that can be
continue in firefighting
The engine, yes.
the engine.
I think that's the primary option, I would call it, yeah.
But that's not, definitely might
We don't know,
opt to.
As long as we get enough to cover it, that's the plan. Anything from that sale would first go towards that, so.
And I don't wanna give a number because I don't know what it
Mhm.
could get.
So, that option two is a great
Okay.
utilization
Uh,
of
i-
resources.
if we are-
Downsize the fleet and upgrade the fleet.
okay, I'd like to, if we can, move to the next agenda item, which is the fire chief annual report. Perhaps there's some questions that linger that you can ask the chief about. Are we okay with that, Mr. Anderson?
Yes,
Moving on to that?
please.
Okay, good.
That's
Uh, Chief, would you like to just walk us through your brief presentation on our annual report, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there two there? Yeah, there's two there. You give them one. I think there's two stuck together.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, this one.
Dana,
Anybody
do you
else?
have one?
I got a couple extra copies.
Can I have one?
Give them to Tammy.
Thanks.
All right, so I just wanted to fill everybody in on 2023 for the fire department.
Can everybody hear him if he's turned this way, or would it help?
I'll speak louder.
Okay.
I just wanted to fill everybody in on 2023 on what the fire department did, happenings that went on. You know, I left in January. I was deployed with my National Guard unit over to Eastern Europe. So Scott Fritcher, deputy chief, was acting chief, and James DiVirgilio was acting assistant chief in my time while I was gone. I just like to go on record and say they did a great job and kept the department going with a busy year. So in 2023, the fire department responded to 1,633 incidents. We did 312 inspections, fire inspections, and the fire department teaches fire education to the seniors and to the students across the town and the school district. And we also offer CPR trainings to the community, a few a year. So overall, it was a very busy year. I have the calls broken down. You can just see what they were, a mixture of, we had 21 fires that occurred in buildings inside structures, 21 fires in the year. Cooking fires, we had 4, chimney fires 2, oil burner malfunctions 4, passenger vehicle fires, we had 1. The big thing, with the fire department running the ambulance, the biggest call that we respond to, the call most frequently is for EMS. And we did 1,104 EMS calls. That doesn't count vehicle accidents, that's just EMS calls. 26 EMS accidents with injury. There's another vehicle, 14 just general vehicle accidents with nobody hurt. So we did, the fire department was rather busy. Mutual aid, the town received mutual aid, so when we need help from another community, the town of Barre's in a mutual aid agreement. It's actually a state law under the fire mobilization. So if the town in need calls for mutual aid, we provide mutual aid, meaning if a town around us has a fire, a car accident, they need something, we respond. If we're in the same position, brush fire, house fire, car accident, whatever it is, if we're busy doing something else, then they respond. The town of Barre received the mutual aid 152 times, and we provided mutual aid 111 times, so we got more than we gave. A majority of that mutual aid is due to ambulance calls, multiple ambulance calls at the same time. I did have it broken down on how many mutual aid ambulances. We started keeping track of how many ambulance calls. We operate 2 ambulances. In the state of Massachusetts, it's a requirement that in order to use transport a patient in an ambulance, you have to have a minimum crew of 2 certified EMTs, or we do run a paramedic ambulance. You have to have a minimum of 1 paramedic and 1 EMT to constitute that crew in order for the ambulance to transport a patient. The state dictates what requires paramedics and what doesn't require paramedics. In the event that we have a call that requires advanced life support, and we don't have a paramedic on the truck, we have to call another community for what we call an ALS intercept. So, for instance, we use Rutland quite a bit because they're on the way to Worcester.
Mhm.
So if, you know, I needed a paramedic, I'm in the patient, we only had 2 EMTs, we would call Rutland, we would meet them somewhere on the way, their paramedic would get into our ambulance, and we would continue transporting to the hospital with theirs. That does cost money every time we do an intercept. There is a fee not required with that. Each community has their own fee schedule based upon whatever they charge.
And those are paid for by insurance?
That is paid for out of our budget,
Oh.
out of our
Oh.
budget, yes. So just.
Where does insurance kick in?
So the way it works, you know, if we transport a patient, the town bills patient, we get whatever we get in patient billing. The community, it could take up to 3 months to get that billing receipts to the town. We have a receipt reserve account, so all of the ambulance receipts from transporting patients goes into that, and that is used at town meeting to offset the EMS budget. So the more calls that we transport, theoretically, the higher the number. Without spending too much time on EMS billing, because I could be here for 2 hours. The state sets the rate for Medicaid, Medicare, and Mass Health. The state sets the rate, so we get whatever the state sets the rate at. We had, in total, we had 308 of our 1,633 calls. We had 318 that occurred simultaneously, meaning two emergencies or 2 calls at once, or sometimes 3 calls at once, that came in at the same time. One crew was busy, and we either had to call mutual aid or utilize another crew to do that. We had 110 second ambulance calls that we were able to staff, meaning both of our ambulances had crews, and they were treating 2 separate patients on 2 separate calls at the same time. We were able to do that 110 times. 89 times we had multiple medical calls at the same time, and we were only able to staff 1 ambulance, or potentially 1 ambulance was out of service getting repaired, so we only had 1 to staff. We had 27 times that we had 3 ambulance calls occur at the same exact time, which we have to call mutual aid regardless, because we only have 2 ambulances. And then 2 times we had 4 ambulance calls simultaneously, different separate calls. And then we had 90 times where we had a fire call, and then an ambulance call, or an ambulance call, and then a fire call, or 2 fire calls at the same time. For inspections, you know, we did, fire prevention, we did, 312 inspections. You know, anytime a house sells, fire department has to do a smoke inspection. Anytime a new house is built, we're gonna do an inspection. Annual inspections through some of our businesses, multifamilies. Sometimes people just call the station and say, hey, I'm not sure if my smoke detectors are good, can you just come to my house and check and see? So we do those inspections as well. All new building plans have to be reviewed. Now we're seeing a lot of EES, electrical storage, like Tesla batteries. People are putting battery storage for their solar systems. We have to inspect those solar systems now. We have to inspect, so we did 312 of those. And then just our call volume as it's gone up. And it's not, like it varies, this is, our call volume increase this year is not just in Barre. Every fire department has seen a dramatic increase in, especially ambulance calls have spiked in the last 2 years. And every community is seeing more and more, especially ambulance calls. In 2023, the fire department did receive $39,417 in grant funding. We got $5,858 for SAFE, which is the Student Awareness of Fire Education. That's provided by the Department of Fire Services, and we use that money to fund the education at the schools and the senior center and Grandview for the stuff that we do. We got $2,500 from the Volunteer Fire Assistance Grant for some forest fire equipment, $2,700 from the MEMA EMPG Emergency Preparedness Grant for some water rescue equipment, $14,898 from the Department of Fire Services to buy a new set of turnout gear for one of our firefighters and 2 new thermal imaging cameras. And then we got, one of our firefighters, Lieutenant Tom George, applied to the Dennis Leary Foundation. He has his own, grant for firefighters, and he secured us $13,461 for some training equipment that we bought. So overall, it was a pretty good year for grants. I did apply for $97,350 through the Assistance to Fire Grant to replace our fire hose. We weren't successful this year. It just opened again, so I'm gonna be reapplying for that hose as well. So overall, like I said, good year. I really wasn't around for most of it, so I got back the week of Christmas. And, overall, I think it went pretty well. No capital items this year for us, and things are pretty good.
I got a question on the ambulance,
Yes.
as far as billing.
Yes.
I understand there's adjustments, I get all that. My question is on like, as far as what we were able to bill out, I mean, there's like, to date, it's like 63%, that's all that has been, taken in on your billing. So, what in line of, as far as getting the numbers up on, getting them, more money in for, is, because it just seems that, I know this wording, do we have anybody that writes or does the billing, the
Yes.
wording? Now,
We contract Coastal Medical.
yeah, they do the wording and all that, because
They do everything. for
Yeah.
us, Yes.
all right, so do they follow up on the bills that are, the delinquent bills and all that too, as well?
They do, and at some point in the near future, I'll be meeting with the board, because at some point, they'll come back to me and say, Chief, we've tried to get, these bills, we're not gonna get them, and they recommend a write-off.
Oh, I understand all that,
And
how
they-
that works, yeah.
And they pursue, because they get paid a
Percentage.
percentage of, they get 5% of the bill, that's their contract, so
Mhm.
it's in their best interest to get all the money they can, and they do a pretty good job. I've talked with some other departments over other services. The majority of our area uses Coastal, but I've looked at other ones, and it seems like they're all very similar.
So to date, do you think 63% is low?
I think that's pretty average.
It's average? It
Yeah,
is.
Unfortunately and a lot of that goes off of demographics, because again, if somebody has Medicaid, Medicare, Mass Health,
Mhm.
the state sets the rate. We can bill anything we
I understand
want.
all that part, as far as the adjustments go, I get it.
And so, private insurance is where you get probably 100% of the pay. So when you look at some communities, and, when you look at Barre, a lot of the patients we transport are elderly patients, Medicare, Medicaid. About 72% of our billing is Mass Health, Medicaid, or
Mhm.
Medicare.
Mhm.
So when you look at some of the other communities, some, I don't wanna call them more affluent, but, you look at like a Holden, where their population's a little bit younger, a lot of their patients have private pay, they have private insurance, so their billing rate's gonna be higher than, their receivables will be higher
Mhm.
than ours. But, I mean, I wish I wish it was higher.
Yeah, I just was wondering if there's a way to, help that along a little bit. The adjustments were like, I don't know if it was last year, it was something like $800,000 in adjustments. We were only able to bill out $400,000 of 1.2 million. It just seems like there's a problem there.
There is 100%, and unfortunately, the state sets some of that,
Huh?
and there's nothing we can do about that, but I 100% agree with you.
There was a question.
I know that the police department, and rightly so, doesn't do lockouts anymore because it damages the car, that's what I've been told.
Potentially,
Does the fire department have to do them?
We don't have to. It's a service I feel that we provide to the community. I mean, in some instances, people have locked their children in the cars. So
That's a different story, though.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, not occupied, when I was talking about that.
Yep,
Motor vehicle lockouts. So then last week,
We have them sign a waiver, so they sign a waiver form that doesn't hold the town liable, and I feel it's a service. I mean, we do it with the on-duty crew, we don't, unless it's unknown
It's a
cause.
courtesy,
Yes.
yeah. And my thought is that does the fire department have to send a full crew and an engine and all sorts of equipment
We don't always, it depends on how it
out
comes
to a
in.
lockout?
Sometimes we send the car.
If all we have to do is stick that tool on the door?
At night, typically it's the lighting, the flashlights, scene lights on the truck. If it's on the side of the road, sometimes they'll do it, so they use the engine to protect them from getting hit by a vehicle. We don't always use the engine, again, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, it depends how the call originates.
Last week you had one, there was an engine and 3 guys in the engine, and you had an ambulance responding on Woods Road. You know what I mean? It seems like that's a bit much.
So, on that particular one, I was there for that, the ambulance was out, at the public safety building restocking medical supplies.
Mhm.
So one member was at the station, I was working, I went with her in the engine, so she wasn't alone, and the ambulance just met us on scene because they were out restocking the ambulance.
It's a motor vehicle lockout, though. You know what I mean?
I-
It just seems like it's a lot.
I don't,
You know what I mean?
I see your point, yeah, I see your point.
When, you know, there's local towing companies, AAA, whatever else. I mean, the police gave it up for a reason. It's just, I don't think it's, you know, I don't think it's really a good thing for our equipment to be doing that kind of stuff. Especially when it's so expensive, that's my point. You know, we're just talking about a $700,000 engine. Doesn't need to be banging over the road to do a motor vehicle lockout, and there's no danger to anybody.
I don't disagree. Yeah, we do, I mean, there is, again, sometimes, based on how the call comes in, if it's got people in it, I think.
That's a different story, I get that.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's safety, you know, that's fine.
And sometimes we use it as training. I mean, a lot of our, especially younger firefighters, don't have any experience driving big trucks. So sometimes, you know, we obviously do driver training with them, but it is nice to be able to take them out sometimes and get them practicing getting into some driveways and how to swing and how to learn. So we do try to use it with certain individuals as a training experience as well, so that when, if they're doing an actual bad emergency, it's not their first time, you know, driving in crappy, you know, we try not to do it in crappy weather either.
Gotcha.
I can see I see your point.
Okay.
Will this be online? Will this report be,
We certainly can put it online.
I would make that request.
Give you a copy if you want.
No, it's not for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, this would be on My Town Government as one of
All
the
the
attachments.
documents that I
Yeah.
get gets uploaded.
Any documents from this will be on My Town Government under this meeting. There will be a list of PDFs, including the agenda and other things. The timeline I'll post around as well, just for anyone who's watching, who's interested, who obviously, you know, can't see it from the camera from here.
Okay. I think we're ready to move on, Chief, and thank you so much for your
Anybody have
attendance
any,
today.
Any other questions?
I don't have another question, but you did a good job.
Thank you. I always appreciate your help.
You did a good job.
And thank those of you who are representing the fire department and the emergency medical group. Thank
And
you for being
we'll
here.
look at it, Justin.
And
We
John,
can
you did a
adjust
great
the
job
policy,
also.
Mark. We'll look at
You
it.
did. Great job.
We'll look at adjusting the policy and just using the car too, and leaving the engine behind. We certainly take that.
Okay.
I definitely see it.
Okay.
Excuse me, does everybody's insurance normally, does normal automobile insurance cover lockouts?
Doubt it.
No.
No?
You'd have to be at AAA or something.
Yeah, I
AAA,
always have to
Sam,
call
you know.
AAA if the
Towing
town can
company.
come in.
And sometimes your
Let them
car,
start
if you have a relatively new vehicle, that's covered under,
Or if
you
you call
know.
OnStar, they
yeah,
can
call
pop it for you
OnStar and all
sometimes.
that kind of stuff.
We can't even
Get into.
do anyways,
Yeah.
if the keys, if the keys are in there, it doesn't allow.
Some places you just push the button and you say, they say, who are you? And they say, oh, your VIN number is blink, and they unlock it for you.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Well,
It's a nice part about a motorcycle. Don't have to worry about it.
Hey, think of all the money we might be saving if we buy everybody a new car.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to conversation about electronic sign on the common, or question, or if we should have an electronic sign on the common at all, or if we're gonna, we really would like to upgrade the sign that is on the common. But that's why we have the Historical Society here this evening, to walk us through their concerns about an electronic sign or the position of any sign we might be adding. So Lucy, I'd invite you up here, and anybody else who might be interested and want to be up closer to, for a conversation, please feel free to join us up here. I would just let you know that the select board has no formed opinion or have not voted on any kind of sign. We've talked about it in passing several times, understanding that an electronic sign is somewhat controversial for the positioning on the common. And I know that being a historic common, we have some requirements that we need to fulfill, that we can't just plop whatever we want at any
Wherever
place we want.
Yes.
So Lucy, why don't you walk us through your ideas about what our requirements are as far as the role the Historical Society would play in any kind of common sign that we might consider?
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment. I'm actually here as the Barre Historical Commission.
Commission, okay.
Commission, okay, and because of this little bit of confusion, I'll just add the Barre Historical Commission is appointed by the Select Board.
Right.
And you appointed an additional member tonight, for which I'm very grateful, because we're supposed to be 5 members. We have been 3, which is the absolute minimum, which means that we could not achieve a quorum for tonight's meeting. So I'm here speaking individually as the chairman of the Barre Historical Commission. And the role of the Historical Commission is to advise the Select Board and other town boards and commissions on things that impact the historical nature of the town. And so what I'm giving you is my aspect and opinion as a historian, and I'm a historian of the Barre Historical Society as well as chair of the Barre Historical Commission. I have not seen any plans for a sign.
We haven't even dared to
Right.
do that.
Oh, okay.
Just
good
letting you
morning.
know.
I'm glad. So, I'm only speaking from a conceptual basis.
Yep.
Okay. So, what I'm going to do is, really strongly urge the Select Board to, proceed cautiously and think about the long history we have on the Barre Common, which is actually established as part of our grant to be a town. And, it's, in 1975, it was established as a historical district with the National Register of Historic Places. So this is a designation that means that we're not just important for the town, the county, the state, New England, but we have been recognized as having an historic place on the Barre Common for our whole country as a place that has architecture, culture, and archaeological aspects that are important to our country. And so to become listed with the National Register, our Barre Historical Commission, which had, back in 1975, applied to the Massachusetts Historical Commission with an inventory of the buildings and the activities that took place on the Common, and requested that the Massachusetts Historical Commission forward that nomination to the National Park Service, which is the federal agency that approves the National Register, and it was approved in 1976. So it's been almost 50 years, and it's probably not a coincidence that it kind of was coincidental with our 200th anniversary, and now we're looking at our 250th. So, it's really important that we look at this. And being a district just means that instead of just being one house, as sometimes is approved for the National Register, we are a grouping, and we have in our National Register a very detailed inventory of the buildings on the Common that qualify, and that would include, for example, the library, the churches, the Historical Society, Town Hall, and also actually the green space that's owned by the town, that is the Common. So we were approved based on our historical integrity, and the application for the register listing included the activities that take place on the town, and that's important too, because It includes mini commercial, entertainment, parks, religious activities going on. It includes, for example, that Daniel Webster spoke on the Common in 1840. The militia trained on the Common and actually was encamped there up to World War I. We have the Barre Fair, used to have the horse races on the Common, and there was actually a lawsuit because they stopped traffic before they created the fairgrounds at Felton Field. So there was a lot of excitement going on there. We've had band concerts and church bazaars. We know about the farmers market. There have been, joyous occasions like when Basil Lizzie returned from his survival on the raft in World War II. And we know about the solemn occasions, for example, the Memorial Day exercises and the dedication of new memorials at North Park. So, just so you know, being on the National Register does not provide any actual preservation of the buildings or the green space on the Common. Somebody could tear down a building and it would not make any difference. The National Register is an acknowledgement that this is a very important place historically for our nation, not just for our town or the state. And what it attempts to do is persuade us that when we make decisions about what happens on the Common, they should be something, a decision that is a goal toward preserving the historical character of our town. And our Barre Common is what many people see as the nature of our town. They see it as a beautiful place. They see the Greek revival architecture of our town hall, of our churches, of the Barre Historical Society. They see the green space. It's a park. It's in the North Park, a solemn park. So it does not mean that we have to be static without growth, but what it means is we should direct what we do toward acknowledging the historic nature and trying to enhance what we do, enhance our decisions, with the knowledge that we need to make this, improve our historical grounds and not deprive it of what we have. And a lot of our historical nature on the Common is visual. So we see that beautiful, the white pillars of the Historical Society. We see the brick of the Barre Savings Bank or the library. And if we have an electronic sign, what is that going to do? It's going to distract us from that visual beauty. It's going to distract motorists, and that has definitely been a problem with electronic signs. But it's going to deprive people. They're going to look at the sign. They're not going to look at the architecture. And there's nothing wrong with electronic signs in the right place. But when they're distracting from a place that's been designated as a national resource of historic beauty, to me that's a problem. So we've got several documents that tell us what we should do with the Common. One is that nomination and inventory form that was improved in 1976 by the National Park Service, which inventories the buildings and the activities that go on there and say this is a place of national importance historically. Then we have another document, which is the Barre Commons Master Plan of November 1999. And based on this plan, we underwent a major rehabilitation project in the early 2000s. And, I'm not gonna read the whole quote, but if you look at the introduction of that, it was using funds from the Massachusetts Historic Landscape Preservation Grant Program and the town of Barre. The Barre Municipal Commons Committee engaged several consultants to prepare a master plan for the rehabilitation of the Barre Commons. There were several focuses. One was to improve traffic patterns and pedestrian safety, but also to re-establish as much as the historic quality of the town commons as possible. So that's a key here. And integrated into that Barre Commons Master Plan was the nomination and inventory forms from the National Register process. And that Commons plan found that they researched past usages and all of that, and they really wanted, this was a major goal, was the historical reclamation of the commons, because they've been cut up with pavement. They wanted to reestablish the green space and that landscape heritage that we have there. So we have another document, which was done by the state, the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation in 2008, called the Barre Reconnaissance Report. And this is a massive document. And as a former municipal planner, I'm in awe of it. They included interviews with almost everybody in Barre, every group in Barre, a lot of individuals, and outside organizations on, you know, what was historically important in Barre and what should be conserved. And one of the major findings was that the Barre Common and Environs, which is what they call it, is one of Barre's priority heritage landscapes. Among the recommendations was to provide a higher level of protection for our commons, historic buildings, and landscape by creating a local historic district. That's very different from being on the National Register. That's a state designation. It's a prolonged and complicated process, but it provides a lot more protection for the buildings and the landscape. And in fact, I've been requested to talk with the planning board tomorrow night about this whole thing. So.
About the sign or the?
No,
okay,
about
just-
establishing local historic districts, and I don't know what's exactly on their minds. I'll find out tomorrow, I guess. But it is a long process, and it requires establishment of another board and a study committee. So, you know, that is something that we can do. There are other processes that are local bylaws that we could establish if we wanted more protection on the common. But the important thing is that this study says that the Barre Common and Environs is very important to our history. And in addition to recommending more protection for the buildings and the landscape, the state recommended that we do more to interpret the Common's important architectural history and the story of its development by the Caldwell and Woods families, and developing an architectural and historical walking tour, brochure, and signs for the Commons area based on the significant Greek revival and Richardsonian buildings, which would be the brick ones, and intact common landscape. Once again, intact common landscape, meaning the green areas. So personally, based on these documents and findings from the past, it's my belief that any kind of an electronic sign or message board placed on the actual Barre Common would be a distraction from the historical assets and integrity of our common.
Lucy, when, the current location of the Welcome to Barre sign, is that a location that we could consider for, to rehab that sign? To do,
Absolutely.
to do something in spirit of, for example, the Henry Woods Library, the Woods Library sign?
Absolutely, and I think
Okay.
that some of the, we have recently had some beautiful signs put around the common. The Henry Woods Library and the Barre Historical Society, and recently this building, I believe,
Yeah.
they are very similar. They have a tone and
Yeah.
a theme, a green sign with gold lettering. And I think that's a great signature for Barre with our green space. I think those are it's a nice theme to carry through. And I will show you, and this might shock you if you have never seen this before. This is Barre Common in 1840. Right, pass my thumbs don't work well, sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. McGinnis. So, I'm showing you this.
We need that back.
This this, is an etching from 1840 of Barre Common. And I'm showing you this because you will see that Barre Common has changed drastically from 1840. So this is almost 200 years later.
Wow.
This sign is where the current Welcome to Barre sign is.
That great big high thing?
This big high thing. Now, this big high thing is there because Massachusetts state law required that if you had a tavern, you had to have a sign that would tell people coming into town that here you can stop and have food and drink and rest and have your horses changed if you're on a stagecoach. So this sign was required by law anytime there was a tavern. And this is taken from, and I don't have enough to pass out, where Moulton Street, what are the, Barre Pizza and the little variety store that's there. This was the Naquag Tavern that burned in 1896. And this was built in the 1700s, and this etching was taken from a man looking out his window across Moulton Street onto that little piece of park where the sign is. And another sign that the Common has changed dramatically, this was the meeting house in 1840, which was right where basically the middle Common was. The horse sheds back here are where North Park is. The town hall had recently been built just a couple of years before. This was the Massasoit Hotel, which is basically where Cafe on the Common and the library are. This building had to be moved because of the separation of church and state. It was moved over here, and it's where some of us recall Beard Motors or Payne for. Moved over here. It burnt in the 1860s after it was moved. The Unitarian Brown Church had not been built. The current Congregational Church had not been built. You can see the stagecoach. Barre was a stagecoach hub. So there is definitely a history, if we want to talk about history, of a sign
I didn't think we could escape it if we were welcomed here.
welcoming people to Barre at that location. So, in terms of history, yes, there can be a sign there, absolutely no doubt. There was also a period when there was a sign that was, and I don't have a picture of it, right, it was sort of like where Pleasant Street and West Street join up by Jenkins. There was a very pretty little wooden sign. Now this is a little excessive maybe, but that was because people had to be able to spy it from afar. They didn't have cell phones. They didn't have any way of knowing otherwise. Most people couldn't read, so this was a sign to them that they could get food and drink here. So yes, there can be signs on the Common. There's nothing about being a historic district that says you cannot grow, you cannot accommodate commercial needs, you cannot, we have a great history of having entertaining activities on the Common that bring in people and income, like car shows and, farmers markets, skating rinks. All of those are great historic things, but an electronic sign specifically, in my opinion, is distracting from the historical nature of the Common, and I would definitely recommend to the select board that you consider a sign of a similar nature to what we have done here at this building or the library or the Historical Society, and we've had some great, really cooperative actions to maintain our historic nature, such as the renovation of the Harding Allen Bandstand, which brings in concerts. Several years ago, a group of 4 entities purchased the former Tapman House and made it part of the Barre Historical Society, where another one of those great signs is. And we recently had renovation of the clock and the bell. And, let's just keep moving in a forward direction, not to be, static, but just to keep in mind how to, keep going with our historic district, if we need an electronic sign, put it outside of the district. It's not saying you can't have one, it's not saying you can't have modern things, but our common is nationally recognized for its historic nature, and let's not put it there.
And so, just so I'm clear, where exactly is considered the district?
There is a map. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy for you. It is in the nomination form for the historic district, and it is outlined in red here.
I can see it.
So it's primarily
Everything.
around the common. There are a couple of little segments of buildings, because they were moved that weren't
Yeah,
eligible,
right.
but they're within
Yeah.
other buildings.
Mhm.
So I think this is the,
And this is where the Barry Pizza, James Street.
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
so this would be the, I
Place
think
where
the
the
spot.
sign is.
Kind of the area, yeah.
That's the sign
Yes.
coming
Yeah.
out that way. Okay.
And now, part of the Barre Historical Commission's mission is to do signage. And we have set that as a goal and objective. And that's one thing that the state recommended back in 2008, is that we promote the architectural and other features of the Barre Historic Common District by having walking tours and signage. So we proposed for 2024 to do that, but we don't have any funding. So, what our hope was that for example, for our 250th year, we could have signs for entering Barre from 122 from the west and from the east, saying this district is in the Barre National Register of Historic Places, and perhaps from South Street. So, there's a lot of ways we could use signage to promote the history of the common and really to make it, beneficial. It's the electronic feature, I think, that is probably a negative here. It's not, once again, not that it's bad, it's just bad in this location.
I appreciate the information shared with us this evening. Obviously, we knew we asked the right person to come here. I certainly would tell you that I have as many people asking for the electronic as I have people saying, don't you dare. So it is not anything that this board takes and doesn't appreciate what you're telling us. And I think that if anything, when people come to our community, they always say, what an absolutely gorgeous common. You guys have the New England common in the area. I don't think we need the arches like this, but.
No, I don't think we need anything
Yeah.
like that. I think it's probably against some kind of a bylaw now, but.
And when you look at the Barre Plains Common as well, which is in need of an upgrade.
Yeah.
That obviously utilizing the same sort of,
Yes.
I would suggest that anything that we come up with, that we ask that the historical commission or, group work with us with the sign guy.
Yes.
So that we will be, all on the same page.
Yeah.
That we don't think, oh, this is what I think they want, this is
Right.
what I think they would approve. I don't know where or if we'll ever have an electronic sign, we'd like to. But some of the places that we've thought about, putting them down at state land, we can't put it there, down in front of Wholesome Food.
Yeah.
It's also a very dangerous intersection as it is, then say, oh, by the way, let's look at the
Well,
sign.
that's the distraction
Yeah,
factor.
so we're
Not just from historical purpose, but let's face it, Barre Common's not an easy area
To navigate.
I have a question. Is there, not being, educated with signs at all, but is there any such type of signs that would be more like a projection sign and like one, like on the face of a building or something, we would prepare for that and it would only for what's needed and then it goes off? You know what I mean?
I mean,
Is
even
there
with
any
an
high-tech signs like that?
I mean, even with an electronic sign, you could have it so it only shows things when they're necessary. I mean, you can also set up an electronic one. It's essentially, you could have it so it displays as if it's a wooden sign, and then the letters on it just change. And we can, 100%, determine what is allowed to be put on it and what it has to look like when it's on it. So there's things along those lines that make it less distracting. I know there are some towns you drive through and it's like a bright orange background with, and like certainly whenever, we can establish guidelines for what something would have to be, whether it's something in the common or if we have, a larger, more, other sign down at Nornay, something along those lines.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're trying to eliminate the structure itself or
you
the
could
look of the
have,
electronic,
like we had a temporary one that's wheeled in, like we've had in the past, so that's not a permanent structure. It can be brought in. I mean, I personally would have no objection to having something temporarily brought in, like before a town meeting or an election, that gives people a message, and then it's taken out, but not as a permanent part of the common.
Unfortunately, the temporary ones are more heavily regulated by the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and they are cracking down on that with various places. So that's where that one becomes difficult.
Well,
So,
I
this
think,
is,
I think obviously that we had the idea that we would like to have something in place by the 250th. And because the signs are pretty worn, the ones that we're trying to replace,
I
the one on
agree.
the Barre Plains Common and the one in the center of town. And we'd love it if you would take some time with your commission to give us some recommendations as to, if you were to replace these signs, this would be something that you, as a commission, would support. I think that, and as you contemplate and you think about an electronic sign, would you have a recommendation for somewhere else? And I mean, we would involve the police department in any kind of positioning of those kinds of signs, because, like you say, distraction is important to think about. And trying to say, where do people drive? They drive basically through the center of town down on 122, I would suspect. I mean, if we put one down on 32, I don't think that's gonna really, get the same sort of, the one at Nornay Park is great, but only if you're driving down that road and you're dead end right into that's perfect.
Can I ask
Even that
what your
one's very
concept
narrow.
of what the sign would say? I mean, that's.
As simple as possible. It
Yeah.
would say something, welcome to, I don't know if you, welcome to Barre, town of Barre, whatever. I look for, okay, that's personal. I look for something that would blend in with historic value of the, I certainly don't think we should have anything that's too crazy. I think that, I love the library sign. I thought, when I finally saw that erected, I said, hooray to the person who thought that was a good one. No, I think it's just excellent.
It
It's
is
just,
beautiful.
it's beautiful.
And considering that most people coming here for the 250th are going to be probably older, more traditional, and fans of history, I don't think we want to probably jar them with something that's too non-traditional. I don't know, that's just, my guess, being an older person from Barre, who, if I weren't here, I would come here for the event.
Any other questions? So could I ask
There's
you?
a question.
Yes.
I'd like to add my voice to the group that's opposed to an electronic sign on the common. When I heard about this terrible idea last year, I started looking at the electronic signs that are around. There seems to be two things that are on them. Town meeting, once a year, maybe twice, and somebody's birthday that works for the town. That seems to be the only thing that goes on electronic signs. I think we can get along without that. I think this is a quintessential New England common that is extraordinarily beautiful. And it's becoming much more rare all the time.
Yeah.
And I think to put an electronic sign there is a terrible idea. Put it down at the supermarket.
We can't there.
We can't, but because we don't own the land.
What?
That's state land.
That's
We can't.
state land, we
State-owned.
can't put it there.
Well,
But, so
then
you
buy
need
a
to put
piece
it-
of land and you come in on 122 and put it there. I don't think there's any need for it to be on the common. I think it's purely an aesthetic issue, and it doesn't fit in there. Thank you.
Honestly, it'd be nice if along 122 going out of the common headed towards Worcester, if it wasn't, steep drop off in the areas where there weren't houses.
Mr. Andrews?
It's just a thought entirely. The roads here, I've had several friends get trapped you know, in the maze. And,
Trapped in the maze.
but then, seriously,
Mhm.
with the one-way roads and everything, why don't you put some markings on the pavement?
I agree, because any
Put
more of the
markings,
signs.
Not only just so you know what route you're on, but welcome to Barre could be written there too.
That can't be written on the road, but,
Why can't it?
the METCD, again, there's heavy limits on what
It's
you
that
can put for
highway guy.
markings on the road, but arrows we could put on the road.
Well, arrows with the route number. You have a route number
Yeah,
on the side.
you can do
Put
route
the
numbers.
number on
Yeah.
the si- on
But
the
you
road.
can't put welcome to Barry,
Right.
that kind of stuff.
Could make a mistake.
That's fair.
Mistakes for good news.
I'm sure there are other historic districts throughout the United States that have had similar problems, and they've had similar discussions.
Well-
And there may be another one right now in Nevada.
Right, well,
So-
most historic districts that I've looked at do not allow electronic signs if they have the regulation. We have, just from my own research, not too much regulation on on signs in general. But most historic districts do not allow them. So, you know,
I can
that's,
understand that.
you know, and when you look at, like, Rutland Common has an electronic sign, they're not a historic district. Oakham has one, but it just became a historic district in 2020, and I don't know how that jives timeline when they got the electronic sign, because believe me, sometimes when you do something like this, it will spur people to want to prevent it by doing more radical bylaws and all that, so. Petersham is a historic
yeah.
district, it does not have one. Hardwick Village and Gilbertville Village are both historic districts. So I think we can, there's a lot of messages we
Bless
can take from places around here
Mhm.
as to what historic districts should do
Mhm.
and can do.
Mhm.
So we can have it before the district.
You can do it
Yeah.
outside of that. I say, I'm not against electronic signs, only,
I'll tell you, my concern was that we had a town meeting recently, and we historically have few people at the town meeting.
yeah.
And
A sign would fix
oftentimes
it.
we need to call more people in
Mhm.
in order to get the minimum.
Yeah.
And there was a sign by the supermarket. It was an actual sign not being used, and it could have said, town meeting tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the orange,
Yeah, that big monstrosity.
Yeah,
It could
ugly
have
thing.
said something,
yeah,
and we didn't use it.
yeah,
And we didn't get,
the quorum.
the-
Oh, no, there was a lot of people at town meeting,
Oh, yeah.
we.
a lot of people at town meeting.
We didn't get the people that maybe would have voted differently or voted the same or whatever it is, but it was not very inclusive.
I think there are ways to get messages out to people. We've got the Swift 911 or whatever, we can have some sort of a telephone, you know, people sign up for alerts for meetings and that sort of thing. I don't think we need to have an electronic sign to do that, is one option, but I don't think we have to have one.
Just, with that map, was the Henry Woods building part of it?
Yes.
It is, okay. The
Not
sign out
this, not
front?
this Henry Woods Library, yeah, not this building,
This
no.
building, okay, so in front of this
It
building
could-
would
it
be
could be
outside the
possible.
common? Okay.
The only problem with this building is it's so high. I went by the office several times up and down West Street, and people said, "Why don't you like the sign?" I'm saying, "What sign?" Oh, really? I didn't even see it or notice it. I don't think that's, you know, an easy one because it's up high and it's not in my sign. I don't know.
Maybe it can be an arch or what.
Well, I don't know about that, but.
Well, I mean, this was pretty high up, so.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I hate to take any more of your time, Lucy, and I appreciate you greatly, and if you would be so kind as to have a conversation with your membership and any recommendations and so forth, also, that would be helpful to us, and understand we're somewhat time sensitive, and that, you know.
What is your time sensitivity?
Well, yeah, I would say if we don't have a plan within the next 2.5 or 2 months, we'll never get it up, you know, because some of the sign companies are pretty fast and stuff, and others are slow. And so obviously, we'd like to have, it would be great if we could have it by Founding Day, which would be late in June. But that may be too aggressive, but some of the sign companies, I know you've dealt with them, Liz.
Well,
You can twist a little arm.
I can't promise anything. I don't know what happened to this Henry Woods building sign. It took me 4 years to get that.
Somehow it's just before COVID, I understand, and it ended up on the sign guy's floor, and it was all paid for and laid there, and so finally, we went through, I think, 3 town administrators before we were able to get the sign done.
And finally, he called to install it, and Jessica said,
What?
no, she said, well, you have to come and get a building permit.
Oh, geez.
He went, what? And he just threw his hands up.
Yeah, well, technically, I guess that is the truth, but.
No, it isn't.
Oh, it isn't, okay.
She should have got the building permit.
Oh, okay.
Because we're inclined.
Well, now we know that, you heard that, Tammy. If we get a sign, you get the building permit.
So with that sign, is that something that remaining common funds could be used for,
Yes,
for that one?
because I know that when Paul Cranston was here, who's the chair of the Common Project, he indicated that he wanted an electronic sign, but he indicated there was money sufficient to cover that if we decided to do a sign, so
Did
we.
he say how much money that was?
I think they have absolutely sufficient funds for, a sign, and I think.
I just have no idea what an electronic sign costs.
Well, we're not talking,
Well,
the,
a sign like the library sign will cost about $4,000.
yeah. That's installed.
We're talking to
With the
replace
granite.
the one in front
Installed
of
every-
Berry Pizza.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a similar wooden one, and then looking at
Yes.
other locations
Yeah.
for electronic
Yeah.
possibly.
And if it's not on a common, the Common Project could not pay for it.
Right.
The Common Project could pay for the sign that we're talking about, this like the library sign, but they could not, we couldn't put one, I don't know.
So that couldn't pay for something in front of this building, because it's not part of the.
Right, correct.
Yeah. Makes sense?
Right, which was what I understood.
Yeah.
Was probably the reason for wanting it on the common and not elsewhere.
And so we would love to see, something that you think, a prototype, something that we could look at, that would be amenable to the commission, because as much as it would be easy for us to just make some silly decision, we know that the significance of our common to our community is very, very important to the town. Not today, but for the many
That's it.
tomorrows.
We're-
Yeah,
People 50 years ago made decisions that we have now, and we're making them for
Yeah.
those 50 years from now.
right.
But, and I also appreciate very much your appointing a new member.
Oh, our pleasure.
Make it much easier for us to achieve a quorum. And we hope other interested members will,
Okay,
will,
sounds good. Thanks very much, Lucy.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the pictures, too.
Thank you very much.
I'll
Nice
sho-
job.
I'll show those around.
Waste parking. Alright. Moving on in business.
Yes, moving on in business now, we have
Town administrator report.
Town Administrator report. Tammy, anything update? I know we've had a pretty full agenda, but,
Yes, we have, so I have started.
gee, here you go. We said Tammy's gonna give a report. There you go.
Even better, it's okay. It's
Cleaned
all
out the
good.
room.
Just the budget processing
Hey, excuse me, if we could just keep it, we do have reports still going on. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, moving on, Town Administrator.
Just finishing up budget reports with all the department heads. Wednesday, they should be pretty much all completed. Finance committee, we kicked off on January 23rd. February 13th will be their next finance committee.
Okay, so next week.
Yep, I'll be attending that. We already have agenda.
Now, have you gotten a budget request report from every department?
Almost February, so tomorrow I'm going to the street listing course, and then Wednesday, I pretty much believe I have almost everybody.
Okay.
I'm very minimal, I just have to reach out to regional dispatch, which I thought, today I
Okay.
met with Chief Rogowski.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that it wasn't on his budget, so I have to
Police.
reach out. No, it wasn't on the police, but first I asked, so yesterday I met with Chief Severn, and he's like, no, that's not us, so then I thought it was Chief Rogowski, met with him. I have to reach out to is it Mr. Moriarty? I don't know his name.
Yeah, my.
Okay.
So I have to reach out to him, so I have to, there's a few lingering on
Yeah,
there
I
that
didn't
I
get
figure.
that from Greg, so and then it
That's
kinda
okay, but I got
lost in the
majority,
shuffle.
I'll say I got probably 90%. As of
Okay.
Wednesday, I'll have 90% already updated.
Great.
February 13th, like I said, I have the agenda, I have a few department heads meeting with the finance committee, anything that's level funding, I'm just gonna bring to them and see if they want any more input, if they do, I will request for them to come and meet with them. But
Okay.
I've been just, as I meet with them, I'm signing them up for our finance committee, so as goes down the line, we can hopefully make sure that they're all there and ready, set to go.
Now, you probably don't have this information, but something for us is, where are we with fuel? Are we bidding? Are we on, with?
I haven't even started that process.
Okay, I just
yet.
wondered, because, I know that last year, we had huge fuel bills, because we went out and we thought it was gonna be this, and, 'cause I think we buy, just, we don't have a big drop, so we can't go out and get a huge amount.
Right.
So I don't know if we, go out to bid on that, if we have locals only, and so forth, so I'd just like to update on what we don't usually use a lot of propane, but we certainly, the fuel that we use at DPWs and the police, obviously, that's big.
Anything we could do to reduce fuel costs,
Yeah.
or even any of our servicing costs for different buildings that get the heating oil, things like those, we should absolutely look into.
Yeah. And then, as you know, we looked at the parks,
Yep.
Rice Park and High Plains Park. Mark and Sandy and I went down, and I got some input from each one of you as well. John did the sketch, Maureen, you and I had talked about the equipment and stuff like that, so with that being
Can have that,
said,
Sam.
the representative will be coming back out, he's still trying to get proposals. Once he gets the proposals, he'll come in, he'll go over it with us.
What's his timeframe?
So last week he touched base with me and he said he's looking for the the
Splash,
pad, so we're
okay.
waiting on that.
Yeah.
So once he gets that,
Well-
because right now it goes to, their headquarters and then he'll send it out to him, look at the proposals. I asked for a couple proposals for him to come and talk with us. I know Mark had said that he could do some self-builds. You were there on that part.
I think we'd all have to come together, I don't know if
Yeah,
Mark
we have
is
to
gonna do
listen
it
to
all
everything.
himself.
No, he's not. We know you're not gonna do it all yourself.
No, there's plenty of people
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
wanna help. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I spoke with, like I said, Aaron O'Connor, he would help.
Yeah,
There's, quite a few friends of mine that said they'll help, so I
Okay,
mean,
great.
List it as a meeting, I'll
we
be
could make
there.
it happen.
okay,
It's not a
so,
lot, it's really not a lot, I mean,
Yeah.
because they send people
yeah,
with,
oh, yeah,
as
Yeah.
well, so
Yeah,
it's,
the only part I wasn't sure is how you do with like the footings and
Well,
things like
that's-
those, if that gets done
yeah.
beforehand, or
yeah,
the what now?
the footings,
any footings and
or
stuff like
any
that. but-
site work.
Yeah, the site works are really, it's not even that, involved, it's,
Oh, okay.
pretty much, wherever your grade's gonna be, just excavating down enough, just so they can put the wooden mat, it's the wood chips is what they
Yeah.
put in there now. And a certain amount of that needs to be, I think 18 inches or something like that, and then they have a, under each structure, there's like a, for the lack of better word, it's like its own little foundation,
Got
a
it.
wire mesh of some sort that holds it all in place, and then you put, backfill on top of that, so it's not really that much involved,
Okay. Yeah, because it has to be handicapped accessible, so that's a
Yeah.
challenge as well.
Well,
I-
but
ideally-
those are the mats, we talked about
Yeah.
the mats, so we don't have to make it all,
Yeah.
well, we talked about two different prices, or another price on that versus
Yeah.
the mats versus the material they put in for, it's almost like an asphalt, it's a spongy asphalt, like a track,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
But you can do
Big
just
money.
paths of that instead of doing the whole thing as
Yes,
that.
yes.
Like, that's what they did in Hubbardston, they had paths of that, and then the rest was bark mulch to save cost there.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we could add on later on, maybe if we needed to, I mean, the rubber mats will suffice for
For now.
they're ADA compliant,
Okay,
so we talked about that.
good, okay.
Yeah, I think we just have to look at how those hold up over time, and how they maintain compliance, things like that, just, we don't want it to be, it's always tricky, because once you create something that's ADA compliant, if it falls out of that, it's more difficult
Yeah.
than if you didn't have it in the first place.
But I don't think we can do
I mean,
it as a
but-
public park unless it is ADA compliant.
I'm
I-
not sure.
I know-
It
I noticed-
absolutely should be.
Yeah,
We
you
absolutely
can't-
should
you can't at a
regardless.
s-
I'm not
You can't at a
sure.
school, I don't know about,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's if it's in the public, and the public's paying for it, I think it has to be handicapped accessible,
I mean, it certainly should be.
yeah.
I
so,
don't know if it has to be, but it certainly should be.
Might as well
Okay.
go for it now,
Yeah.
Okay, anything else, Payne?
Just a few more things. Greg, the interim town administrator, he was working on the town website before he left.
Yes,
So I have reached out to, Mr. Estrella, his
Yeah.
name's Chris Estrella, and he will be doing our presentation on the town website on February 20th, which is our next select board meeting, so
Is he doing it at that time?
he's doing it at 6 o'clock for
Oh.
like a half-hour presentation.
Okay, my concern is that there's some work that we have to do in order to, you know, once he sets the work, the new website up, we have to give him all the information.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah.
have to do that, but our other one's gonna be up for contracts, it's almost up, right, Sandy, for the,
Yep, so it's
I think they're
perfect.
on right now, so.
Okay.
And the only other, I have one more thing, just our elevators are up and working, both here and the senior center, and I was lucky enough to get down to the senior center, and I met a few of our residents and some non-residents, and, they had done yoga, and they were
Okay.
really enjoying themselves, so I thought that was
Great.
really nice,
Great,
yeah, that's it.
okay. Select board reports, Mark? got some?
No, that, she pretty much covered a lot of things that I might have talked about.
Okay.
I think we covered most of what I've been working on between the fire truck timeline and the rapid flashing beacons, getting down there
Yeah.
to see what would be realistic in that location and making sure we stay ahead of the paving of the road, because that would
Yep.
be challenging if that
And
if that
I,
were to happen, and then we wanted to cut into it.
I have a couple, just a couple things. I continue to work with the police on the negotiations and so forth, and hopeful that we'll come to some resolution within some timely fashion, but I've been hoping that for quite a few months now. So, with the board's help this evening, making some adjustments to our, I guess, contract proposals, maybe we'll get some movement. Also, the Barre town, the library, obviously, the town of Barre is responsible for the programming and the Barre Library Association owns the building. But there is a document, I understand, Sandy, there is an agreement between the Barre Library Association and the town regarding capital projects.
Yeah.
And so they have reached out and indicated that they have a problem with some chimney work and so forth, and would like to make a proposal to us as far as what that work entails and what we're responsible for. So if you can dig out that document and make sure that the select board members get a copy of it so they know what our requirements are, or their expectations.
And I'm sure
And then-
someone else could speak to that better, but, could end up being an issue of water getting through the chimney from what I was
Yeah, it's just,
shown, so.
yeah. There's a lot of documents and so forth, and there've been a lot of people on the
Yeah.
roof, and so forth. I think they can possibly go out for a bid on something, because it was some fire safe group that had made an overture to the Barre Library, I think about a year ago, and then just had too much work to actually complete it. So there are a couple vendors in the communities that can help us. Another deep concern that I have relative to the building inspectors, sort of work on Henry Wood's building and the town hall is our fire escapes, which are very old and not well maintained, if maintained at all, dangerous in fact. So we do have to reach out to an iron working company to take a look and see if they are salvageable or whether we will be replacing them. That is something, Mark and John, if you have connections with companies that can help us out
I
with
do.
that.
I think that,
Okay.
yeah, that's a Mark one.
Yeah, that's a Mark one.
Ironworkers, yeah.
Yeah, iron
I
workers.
used to be an ironworker. I
Yeah.
did a lot of friends in it, yeah.
Well, good, bring some of your friends
Yeah,
to
no, I
take a
do.
look.
This is
I
that
have a
picture
lot
of
of
me and
connections
lunch
with
up on the
iron.
beach.
All you gotta do is ask.
Okay, well, good, we're asking. So I would say the most important thing for us is to have your expertise to find out, get some people on scene, let them look at things, see what we've got.
I can do that.
I know that sometimes it can be fixed by some welding and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
My
it's metal, as long as
expectation
it's
is-
not rotted, the structure's good.
My guess is it's kind of
Yeah.
rotted.
Yeah,
I
well-
saw it about a week ago, and
It's pretty bad.
did you go look at it?
No, I will though.
Oh, yeah.
And then the town hall as well, because the town hall's in a difficult situation as
Yeah.
well. So
That's the
the
one I
fire
saw.
escapes are problematic, I'm worried about those. Probably all of you know that our HVAC systems are not great in either library or this building or town hall. Everything seems to be fine from that respect in the senior center. So we really, Tammy, we need HVAC people to get in here and give us an evaluation of where we are and what best next steps would be. So I am concerned about that for certain. And I know that we had taken a trip around this building about probably 3 or 4 months now with Greg. We, looking at all kinds of spaces in this building where people have just thrown, you know, things that they no longer use, parts of their offices that they no longer use. We have some, you know, rooms just filled with old furniture and old this
There's
and
a
old that.
terrifying Santa.
Yeah, terrifying Santas stuck down in there, old Christmas tree, whatever.
Some bizarre stuff in
The
this
building
building.
inspector in his trip through here indicated his displeasure
Yeah.
with some of that junk that's, you know, in areas that should be cleaned out. We had reached out to the sheriff's company.
So I did, and I ended up hearing the other day, she got back, we've been playing phone tag. Originally, she
Didn't-
said they couldn't really do it, but she's willing to come out and walk around with me, but I just gotta get her at the same time, cause she left a message for me, I left a message for her.
Because what we need is just some, you know, muscle power
Yeah, so
to,
she is gonna plan
the-
on walking around
the
with me.
prisoners, they,
and
send the
hopefully
prisoners
get
out
that
to help us.
Oh.
And so what we will be doing, we've already
Fit right
gone
in.
through all of the areas. We've had department heads check out every area and make sure anything that was salvageable that we would be keeping, they have put wherever they've put it. And I said to them, understand, I will throw it out if it, you know, make sure it gets into the dumpster if you guys haven't said we need this. There is some old technology that I don't think we can just throw into a dumpster, that will be prohibited. We're gonna have to have a technology company come in, not a big deal, we don't have a lot of it, but that we can take care of. So I'm just saying that, if we can't get the sheriff's department, my recommendation would be that we go to the school district and say to, for example, the NJROTC group, the basketball group, or whatever, because they work to fundraise. And for example, you say, okay, can you guys, in between seasons, come here and load up the dumpsters for us? And obviously, we would have to supervise them. And then we would pay them an amount of money that would go into their fundraising efforts, which is sometimes for new uniforms or whatever. It's probably the least expensive thing. We could ask for the DPW individuals to help and assist. The only problem is, it's a difficult time of year to say, oh, the dumpster's here, and then it snows. So, and they are really, really, you know, tight with the number of people that they have, and I know that they're understaffed. So if we can't get the sheriff's department to help and assist, I'm hoping we can. I can make a call too, because I know somebody who's the assistant deputy there.
Oh, excellent. Good.
So, and he's from Barre. So we might be able to, you know, get a little pressure on that. So I'll try reaching out to him. But I am just absolutely committed to cleaning this place out. It makes me crazy to go up on the 3rd floor, and Mark, you and I have been on the 3rd floor, and you and I know we're taking a chainsaw up there. So, and we'll post the meeting if we have to. But, so we've got some cleaning to do, and I'd like to just get it done, because the building inspector's concern is about, you know, getting everybody out if there were a fire, and on and on and on. So we need to, you know, make a good example, so. So those are the things that I'm sort of worried about and working on, and I will also, I think Tammy and I are gonna be meeting with the Council on Aging group. We're very concerned about a lot of issues of concern that brought to our attention about people not getting along, and a lot of people, you know, getting off the thing because of issues. So we're gonna try to see if there's anything we can do to help in that regard, but I'm not sure we are gonna be successful in that, but I think we're gonna do some reaching out this week and talk to some people.
One other thing, not related to that, it's, we had spoke a little bit about before, an equipment superintendent, someone from the board, or someone that can keep track of what we have
Inventory.
in town, what we have for equipment, and what we should be doing as far as rolling it over, anything, you know. It's just, we have so much stuff, and I don't think anybody knows what we have other than the people, you know, the department heads or whatever. I don't even know. You
I
know.
agree.
But there's just, you know,
You
I
looking
think it's
for-
out of control.
Are you looking for a job?
I told you I would do it.
Okay, but you can't do it by going in there with a weapon and saying,
I know,
I
I
wanna
know.
know.
I know equipment, I know
Okay,
trucks, I know
yeah.
equipment, and I know
But
what
I
I'm
mean,
looking at.
but it's also,
Tools, everything.
yeah, but it's also going in and saying how many computers we have, how old are they, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then having,
You write it down.
and then, well, but see, most places, like in a public sector, are supposed to, under Gatsby, okay, blah, blah, they're supposed to be doing okay, an inventory, when a piece of equipment comes in,
Yeah.
it has to be registered, there has to be a SKU number on it, so then when you do your inventory 2 years from now, dink, 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 dink. And I would say that a lot of big places, or places that have a lot of stuff or fell behind, often have a company come in and help and assist somebody
Yeah,
like you.
yeah.
So that you can dispatch them and say, okay, you're gonna go down to the sewer commission today, and you're gonna find everything that they have and make the list of it, so that it doesn't look like we're heavy-handed. But I couldn't agree with you more that we need to get a better track of the stuff we have.
Yeah. I
And what
think
we
do.
throw out and when we throw it out.
Some of the places we have look like junkyards.
I think you're being fair and probably being too nice.
So I think we gotta look into that.
And so I know we can get a couple companies that do that, and I can check with the school, they have one that does it for them, and so on. Because once you do it the first time, then you're just adding
Right.
to it and subtracting. So every year you have an add-on list, and you have what we, you
It's a
know,
little bit each
Yeah.
year, once
Yeah.
it's done.
yeah, once it's done, it's really easy. Okay, I'm done. I guess you're all happy about that. And the only correspondence we had was the little note from the library saying that they had an issue and that they would like to sit down and meet with us about the chimney issue,
Yep.
so that we could
Oh, we
figure
have
out.
correspondence?
Yeah, she just sent me an email. The clerk from the Barre Library Association, that's Liz, Martin, Elizabeth Martin.
Okay.
She was here
She was
tonight
here, yeah.
about the
Right,
sign.
so you got an email from them
I will
regarding,
regarding how do we get in touch with you people to get this done. I will send it right along to you.
okay, perfect.
But I just got that, and so I sent the thing back to her saying, can you be at the next meeting on the 20th? She said, yes, they could. And so they have all the documents, and they have old bid, not old, but last year's bid
Yep.
documents. So they're in pretty good shape for that.
Oh, so this is, we're still talking the chimney.
The chimney.
Yeah, we're talking the
Okay.
chimney.
So, yeah,
Okay.
and in talking with Joe last week, I know there's also a project moving forward that's grant funded for the foundation.
Yes.
And there might be a way to save costs by having the chimney take place at the same time.
Yeah.
But that would require, quicker action.
Yeah.
But so that might not be possible.
And that is all grant funded. The Barry Charitable Foundation funded a
Yep.
portion of it, and the historical,
Yep. And
historical
that'll
grant.
be great for preserving the building.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, 'cause
grant
we have-
funded
we have
project is
some
happening
lot
for the
of stuff.
foundation there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And would actually, from what he said, make some rooms usable that
Mhm.
haven't been. So that would be
Yeah.
great.
Because there's a flooring project that will be after the foundation is finished, some sort of
Yeah.
a flooring thing
Yeah.
downstairs, so it's good news.
So that'll be great.
Yeah,
And grant funded.
and, yeah, grant funded by 2 or 3 different entities, which was good,
So thank you to everyone who put in effort to get those
yeah,
put together.
for sure.
This
Okay,
foundation is not cheap.
that's the only correspondence I had that was not sent to the board officially. This was just an email to me, and so I will just forward that along to you.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded to adjourn. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Looks like a unanimous vote, and it looks like at
Only 10 past
9:11, we are adjourned.